Welcome to the Courage Barbell Unlimited podcast with your host, legendary powerlifter and strength athlete, Chad Ikes. For most, the journey of strength starts in the gym, but should inevitably expand through all aspects of life. Join us as we discuss all things strength. Now, here's your host, Chad Ikes.
Hey everybody, we're back again. I have another very cool guest. I'm always excited. Every time I have a guest and I go, "Hey, great guest!" I'm excited to talk to him. Like I'm very fortunate in my life, I think, to be able to do this stuff. Today we have Nick. Did you just say it? Just say your last name so I don't fuck it up.
Tsourounis.
We have Nick Tsourounis, who has a huge, long history in powerlifting. He's been like. You think of a way to be part of powerlifting, he's probably done it at some point or another, coaching, handling, judging, like he's just been around the whole thing. And it's funny because I did look up your numbers in open powerlifting, but something that Vincent DeZenzo said in the last podcast, he's like, the numbers really don't mean that much, especially when you're thinking in terms of legends. Like, the numbers are part of it, but if you're a shitty person, nobody's going to remember you. Like if you're a good person and you give back to the sport and you help people, that's what people are really going to remember. And for some reason that popped in my head when you were a 900-pound squatter, 700-pound bencher, close to 700 deadlift, and a 2,200-pound total. And those are all numbers that were amazing in the day and still good to this day. I was thinking about what Vinny said, thinking about all the stuff you've done. Like a lot of people will lift, but they never handle, or they never spot, or they never load. And it's like, I think that's kind of an important part of the journey. But I was also looking at, you started basically in 96, if this is correct.
Well, here's the funny thing. And I think it's also important to be accurate and honest. So, that 700-pound bench was done in a band shirt recently. That wasn't the back in the day. I was mid sixes in the old school multi. And the deadlift I never had to pull more than anything kind of past a second attempt because I wasn't in the running for anything great and I just wanted to hit the total I wanted. So, that was usually a second attempt and I just kind of gave up. But, because I already have.
I have been in meets where it's like, okay, my place isn't going to change. I hit the total I wanted. Do I really want to pull it? And sometimes I would go out and do it. And I even had Dave one time. He's like, dude, I could see in your face you weren't going to pull that. And I was like, yeah, I just didn't have much. Like there was no reason at that point. I couldn't get myself to do it.
Well, and there's also the funny thing too is, you pull what you need for a certain total after benching with as much of an arch and fighting the shirt and your back is already spazzing like crazy and you've already had a multiply suit, compressing you from your tailbone up under the bar, your spine doesn't want to pull a full-blown third attempt deadlift. So don't get greedy. Just take what you want for the total you want. Leave the meat in one piece kind of mentality. So a lot of us, of that time frame, we're just going to pull what we need to for the total we want. If we're not winning anything money wise, or we're not doing it for first place, there's no need to go balls out or anything.
I was never a fan of the deadlift, and people ask me why, and I go, it's because there's no fear factor. Like if I have a heavy squat on my back and I don't get it, it could crush me. Same with the heavy bench. I go, if the deadlift gets hard, you just let go of it.
You know what? And that's the funny thing too. That was
so by the end of the meet, I'm like, yeah, there's no fear factor. I don't have the drive, like whatever.
Yeah. And especially in some of the meets from, years ago where it was, hey, we're trying to cram 5 flights of equipped guys. You may pull your last deadlift at there was one meet I remember. I was in um, late 90s, and this particular meet director was infamous for dragging things out, but I put my last deadlift down at 1 a.m.
Ugh.
And I mean, depending on how long the meet was,
Yeah, it's really you're like, yeah, at that point you're really calculating and going, there's just no point in me doing this right now.
yeah, yeah. And so I mean, and beyond that, with open powerlifting, they still don't have quite everything uploaded from all the old powerlifting USAs and linked to the appropriate, because I mean, a lot of the old meet results, you just saw your last name.
Yeah. There's on mine there's a lot of meets that aren't even in there.
Yep. Because of that dead spot. From like the smaller level meets where it was just a last name and you don't know who that was.
Yeah.
So there's a couple missing off of mine, but I think my first meet was a little bit before that, but yeah, mid 90s.
So we're pretty close. The only difference is you were like a teenager when you started.
Yeah.
Because my first meet was 97 and I was already like 27.
Yeah.
And so we were about the same time, just about 10 years difference in age.
Yeah. And I got I lucked out just as a matter of where I grew up, because I got thrown into some gyms that I had no real business getting thrown into. Because within 2 years after I first started competing, I was going to Chalet's gym and training with all of the savages that train there. And I mean, anybody that's read the old stories or read the stories about Chalet's gym that Marty Gallagher wrote, yeah, that accurate.
It's interesting how many people I've interviewed and just friends that I have that started powerlifting and were fortunate enough to have some older guys like take them under their wing. And I think that's an interesting, like, what would you say, like, how big of an impact would you say that had on you? I think, I keep picturing this, and every now and then I have a young kid that want to train with us, and I'm like, yeah, cool, but I'm putting you in with the adults because I specifically want that. I want you to learn what a man is, and I want you to learn what hard work is. And, Ed Cohn did that. I think J.M. Blakely had mentioned that. Just a bunch of my guests were fortunate enough to have, and it's kind of funny too, because you think about these big, badass, tough powerlifter guys, but they take this young dude under their wing and they teach him a lot of stuff about life beyond lifting.
Oh yeah. I mean, you take a look at some of the guys that were training at Chalet's, and then like every so often as a treat, instead of Chalet's, because there was a bunch of us that were carpooling to Chalet's together from where I lived, which was about an hour away. Other times we would carpool up to the MAC, Maryland Athletic Club, and Karwoski was there with that crew. And then of course, as the years passed on, I went to college. One of the crew that I trained with, Julie Scanlon ended up, dating Kirk for a long time. And, so Kirk was still there when I was training in college. So it was just, just being around him as an influence too. Yeah. I mean, you take a look at some of these brutally strong guys that are, big and scary and jacked. And no, they gave a damn, man. Mm-hmm. They want to see you do good. So,
there's so many places we could take this, and this is why I wanted to do the podcast with you. For those that are listening, me and Nick been kind of messaging back and forth, and finally I'm like, that's it, dude. You got to come on the podcast. Like, the shit we talk about is so great.
I know. And lifting is always the springboard, but there's some sort of, human experience that transcends lifting, that lifting is just the manifestation of.
Yeah.
Or the lifting world is just the manifestation of, because this applies to life in general.
Yeah, I really have always associated the two together. And some of the best lessons I learned in life, I was able to transfer into strength. Some of the best lessons I learned in strength, I can transfer into my life if you just take a little bit of time to think about them. So
Oh yeah.
you really got in. Like, I think I got in at a good time, but I really didn't have anyone around me. So I didn't get to, it took me a few more years to start getting with around the higher level guys. But you kind of started in between two eras almost.
And you know what? That's the funniest part about it too. I've always said that people that started in the mid 90s were fortunate in the fact that we evolved with the gear, if you're a quick
Yes.
lifter, because all of us started out in blast shirts and marathon squat suits.
I will still defend a marathon squat suit because that material to this day is still crazy.
It was so far ahead of its time. Well, the later versions were so far ahead of its time. Um, Somebody from Chalet's actually gave me, and I wish I still had it, but it has long since been deceased. But they gave me one of the original Spangian made marathon suits that was like a super thick wrestling singlet that was absolute trash. And you think about everybody who posted amazing numbers in the early 80s with those suits, and you're just like, oh my God, how did you do this? This is really a glorified singlet. But the marathon material of the mid 90s was really something else and ahead of its time.
Yeah,
Honestly.
for a single ply material, that shit was tough, man.
Oh yeah.
And you could actually get something out of it.
If it didn't blow out on you, that was the other, is because it was so tight and because it was so thin. And I think this is one of the things that I go on and on about is the equipment and the rules and what people think. There's little nuances that a lot of people don't talk about, but back then the equipment, marathon, you think about how thin that material was.
Mm-hmm. Well,
Because
especially like the Inzer stuff.
oh yeah, well, the Inzer single ply stuff, the Titan single ply stuff, the Overkill single ply stuff, it, the marathon stuff was so much thinner because they had a thickness limitation.
Yeah.
In the rule books, nobody bothers to read the technical rules. They just worry about the rules of performance. And it's like, no, there were specifications that had to be met. And yeah, I mean, I still have the last marathon suit that I ever bought. And I've let lifters of today feel it, and they're like, oh my God, this is, like ridiculously thin.
Mm-hmm.
Compared to what we have now. I mean, some of these compression singlets that the raw lifters are using, way thicker.
Yeah, I actually haven't seen many of the raw singlets, but people have been telling me about them, and I have had to wrap people with some of the new knee wraps, and I'm like, oh my God, like they're hard. It's hard to wrap people. They're like this big around. They're
Oh
huge,
yeah,
and I'm
yeah.
like, I don't think that I would like that. I haven't put a pair on. I would rather have thinner and stronger. Like I think there's too spongy for me, but I mean, they're using them and they're getting something out of it. So,
Well, and that was actually, something that we saw over the years too, where the argument wasn't necessarily how thick the wrap was; it's how many revolutions can you get, and if it's too,
yes.
because then you get into that debate about casting versus rebound. But if you have one that's good enough that you can get enough overlays around the knee, you can actually just build up rebound. It's like, okay, well, it's not going to stop you,
Yeah.
but you're going to get more out of it.
Yeah.
And you've got somebody who's either really, really good at wrapping knees or just super strong hands and forearms. You're going to get so much more out of that than the best, casting wrap ever.
We had I remember when metal at one point metal had really good wraps and then they switched and I hated the new wraps. And like I would have Ethan would wrap me and I'm like, Ethan, what are you doing? Quit being a bitch, man. Wrap me. Come on. And he's like, no, I'm stretching these things as hard as I can.
Yeah.
And it just, to me, it wasn't hard enough. Like, I want that hard, stiff wrap. That's what I want. And then like, yeah, how many times it can go around. I did a podcast. Well, I did a post. I think it was, who the hell did the post? Somebody did a post about the coefficients and shit like that. And then I responded to it, and it got tons. Like, everybody was responding to his post. And I went, well, screw that. I'm going to do a fucking podcast on this then. And I really don't have a difference. I really don't care. I just think it's funny that you go, the best lifter is the coefficient lifter. Why is that the best lifter?
Yeah.
So I went on there and I'm talking about stuff, and I'm like, it's not fair anyway. None of it's fair. Like, somebody who's 5'4" can wear a belt that is from their pelvis to their rib cage. Why can't I wear a belt that's that thick? And then their knee wraps go around like 150 times. Mine go around 12. Like, how's that fair?
Yeah. I mean, there was plenty of times where, I'm wrapping people because I've, like you said, I've pretty much been involved in the sport in so many different capacities over the years. And a lot of it has been handling other people at meets. And like, I'm sitting here and they'll hand me a pair of wraps and I'm like, you're not going to get anything out of this. Cause it's too much. It's too stiff. Yeah. It's like, if the wrap it's kind of like what we used to say about bench shirts. If the shirt's stronger than you are, then there's going to be a problem. Mm-hmm. If the wrap's stronger than you are, there's going to be a problem. Mm-hmm. Or conversely, I've seen other people, if the wrap is stronger than your handler, there's going to be a problem because your handler's not going to be able to do a good job wrapping you. Because their hands are not strong enough to actually get the material to kind of break and stretch apart.
Right. I've actually never heard anyone say that, but that's to my brain, that's always been something that I just kind of knew, but it's probably something that needs to be said and talked about. Because I think a lot of people, especially, and again, I think this is maybe a generational thing or a time thing. Mm. I think guys were more technical back in the day.
We had to be.
Like, understanding the gear, understanding the belt, understanding the wraps. Like, it seems like we put a lot more time into, even when it comes to exercises, we put a lot more time into understanding, wait a minute, what does this exercise do? Mm-hmm. Do I have the mind-muscle connection? Is it actually working what I want? And so now it's like, guys are like, this is the new wrap, I want to wear it. And I'm like, well, do you know how it works? Do you know how to wear it? So who's wrapping you? How are they going to wrap you? Because you can wrap multiple different ways, as you know. So, and it's like they just want to do it instead of actually learning about it.
So it's funny that you bring that up. That's something that I've talked about for years. And it kind of bleeds over into other facets where, the technical mastery aspect. And I mean, you see it a lot in the raw community nowadays, mm-hmm. because they have to be, because there's nothing, they're trying to milk absolutely everything they can out of a movement or out of the competition movement. But, and a lot of people are so worried about their weight class, they're not willing to get bigger and go up a weight class to hit bigger numbers because their coefficient's going to suffer. Mm-hmm. But because a lot of meets nowadays, best lifter and some of the awards, the cash payouts are predicated on coefficients, but so they've got less to tweak to get better. But the technical mastery part for people of our generation of lifters, and when I talk about generation of lifters, I'm not just talking about us Gen Xers, but people that came into the sport at that time period. As new equipment would come out, we would have to learn how to use it. The materials were less forgiving, mm-hmm. to say the least. Anybody who ever benched in denim, or even worse, anyone who ever benched in one of those painful Ernie Franz canvas bench shirts, like the material was less forgiving. So you had to be technically very proficient in order to get anything out of it, because your margin for error was so small.
Mm-hmm.
1/4 inch off, and that bench is now dumped because you just fell off of the bubble. It's not like an SDP or some of these newer shirts that have such a large sweet spot for the bar to touch. I can remember in denim where it was like, yeah, you're 1/4 of an inch off, or if you lost more than a pound or two since the last time you benched, all of a sudden it's like, yeah, this doesn't fit quite right. Your margin of error was super, super small.
Yeah, I remember. I don't know if it's the way they were cut or the material or a combination of both. But yeah, you really had to hit that groove, and it was hard. Like the shirt was trying to throw you all over the place. So you had to learn that I need to maintain this groove and take it in this place.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, like you said, I mean, I'd go into a meet and people are like, what happened with that meet, man? And I'm like, I was a struggle, man. I came in like 5 pounds heavy. And they're like, 5 pounds. And I'm like, yeah, 5 pounds. And it changed everything.
Yeah. Well, we didn't have the benefit of having equipment that was adjustable either.
Yeah.
Some adjustable squat suits nowadays, if you came in light, you got nothing.
Yeah.
You came too heavy, you're not going to be able to hit depth at all. So, there was no adjustment on the spot adjustment if unless you had a completely separate pair of briefs or a completely, separate shirt that fits you if you were just a little bit small or whatnot. And of course, nobody had the disposable income for that either.
Yeah. Yeah, it was gears. It was interesting too, because it seems like looking back, the gear, there was a lot of big changes in the late 90s and early 2000s where like a new shirt would come out and it was like a whole different ball game.
Oh yeah.
And you're like, oh crap, now I got to figure out how to do this. And then like I think George Halbert was the first one to cut the back, which to me was amazing. That was so much better for me, and it allowed me to easier adjust things.
Mm-hmm.
But still, you're like, okay, now we just changed everything again.
Yeah.
And it was the gear was interesting. And even in the squat suits, going from like, you step up from the poly to the canvas was a huge difference. If you added briefs to your suit was a huge difference. And then you had to go, okay, how do I like to wear my briefs tight and my suit a little loose. And then I could adjust my straps. But like there was all these different things that kept changing, it seemed like, where you never had like years and years and years to try to master one thing because something new came out.
Well, and that depends on the approach, because I knew, and I think this was a mentality that may have only survived or been a thing in certain circles, but actual strength was paramount to certain people that I trained with.
Mm-hmm.
And when new equipment would come out, it was always, well, are you strong enough to handle it? And do you want your numbers to jump because you got a better shirt, or do you want it or suit, or do you want it to be because you actually got stronger? So, and especially if you were tracking methodically your training, because if you're constantly changing equipment, how do you know your training's working? People can go out and buy themselves a 50-pound PR squat nowadays, and we could do that for ourselves back in the day too, but just by getting the newest suit or the newest briefs or, whatever. But if you're really interested in and I'm not even going to call it the science of training, because there's a lot of science of it, but the art, because there's so much is subjective. It's hard to call it a science, because if you can arrive at the same destination in several different ways, or if the same methods produce differential results in different populations, it's hard to call it a science because it's not exact.
There's too many variables.
Too many variables, and even when you adjust for as many of them as you can, it still produces differential outcomes.
Well, yeah, I mean, you would have the guy that you're like, dude, this dude's weaker than shit raw, and he'd put on a shirt and go crazy. And you're like, what the shit? And then you'd see somebody who was strong as shit with or without his shirt.
Oh yeah.
And I know, because I know with like, I was sponsored by Metal for most of my bigger years. Mm-hmm. And, you know, they would come out with like, I was using one of the old original polys, and they came out with the Viking. Mm-hmm. So I got a Viking. I tried the Viking one for a little while, and I'm like, it's just not me. Like, I don't like it. Well, I handed it down to my partners, and my partners loved it.
Yeah.
So they would wear Vikings, and I'm like, I'm keeping the older one.
Yeah.
And then people are like, why are you wearing the old shirt? I go, because it works better for me. And then a lot of people didn't know this, but I never I customized a couple denims that I actually did had my mom do. But I'm like, I would buy stuff off the shelf. That way I knew when it went bad, I could get the exact same thing.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you could with Metal because the sizing was consistent.
Yeah.
Towards the later, I mean, well, thinking back on it, you know, certain companies, the sizing was always fluctuated based off of batch of a material.
Yeah.
I think, you know what I'm talking about. So, you know, you think you wear a shirt of this size, and, you know, when everything was just stock and there was no customization, it's like, okay, well, I'll just order the same size. The shirt comes in, you blow it out on your first warm up with it because it is so much different than, you know, what this size was the last time you ordered a shirt. And it's also funny that you mentioned that too, with that, where, you know, in the 90s, especially for people who did not have the means to just keep buying, you know, new marathon suits or new blast shirts, you got pretty handy with a thread and needle to fix some of the tears and the seams, because I'm not going to spend another $40 on this. On another
you also learned, and I think this was like the point earlier, when back in those days we generally, you needed a team. You needed guys to help you get this shit on because it was so goddamn tight. Yeah. Later on, it wasn't such a big deal. Like at the Arnold Classic, I put my gear on all by myself. Like I could do it, and it was fine. But you needed guys to help you, and then, like you said, you didn't want to blow out your shirt. Mm-mm. So guys like me, who I'm no genius by any means, but I'm like, hey, you know what? If we put soap in the water, it lowers the surface tension and the fabric sucks it up better. And wet fabric is less likely to break than dry fabric. And you learn all these little things and these little tricks that you're like, I thought that guy was a meathead. How the hell did he learn that? You know, because you're like, you had to. You're like, I can't afford to keep buying these denim shirts, man.
Oh God, no. Those and that was the funny thing too. I mean, again, like if you come in a little bit heavier and you're holding water and all of a sudden your shirt's too tight, like, well, wet the seams. Yeah. You know, get it to give a little bit more. By
and then you get a tattoo on your chest like I did to help me adjust it, depending on those things.
And, you know, and that's where a lot of lifters you know, I think that was kind of the sweet spot, was when you were at your peak and a lot of other guys were at their peak who kind of pioneered a lot of this stuff. Because I mean, you got the tattoo. Mm-hmm. A lot of guys I knew would have it drawn on themselves in Sharpie.
That's how I started. And then eventually I went, you know what? Why don't I just this is stupid. And like after one meet, I told my training partner, I go double mark all those lines so they're good and dark. I'm going to call my tattoo guy right now and tell him I'll be home in 3 days and he's got to do this. And the best part was my tattoo guy goes, you want me to do what? I go, just lines, just tattoo these lines. And he's like, why? And so I explained it to him and he's like, holy crap. This is the first tattoo I've ever done that actually has a function. That's kind of cool.
Yeah. You were very well known for that one. A lot of people thought that was genius back in the day.
Well, it never moved. It was always there. There was no measuring. Like, here it is.
Yeah. Well, not to mention the fact that, I mean, you can kind of go off of that. And even if you're using a different shirt and you set it to one setting, you're like, well, no, take it up one notch or take it down one notch. The notches are still the same.
Yeah.
So,
it worked out great, honestly.
I mean, it's genius. It was genius.
And to this day, I still get to look at it in the mirror and I chuckle every now and then.
Yeah. I mean, it's an artifact of what you used to do, and you get to carry that. And but that was the thing. There was more of a objective, self-aware and self-reflective aspect of it, because we were doing everything we could to maximize our own personal performance with the limitations that we had, based off of the technology at the time, but we were trying to find, a way through it and to progress. And I think one of the things that, when you said you always bought the stock equipment, hey, if you're not modifying it, where the work you need to do. It's like, okay, well, if I'm not going to change my suit and brief combination, and this is where I'm failing, or conversely, because back then there was less of a stigma of going up weight classes because it was about a total. It was about your numbers. It wasn't about coefficients.
Yeah, it was definitely, in my day, it was like, what is it going to take you to lift the maximum amount of weight you can lift? And that didn't always mean going up. Like I tell people, when I hit at APF seniors in Detroit, I was 397 and I felt like crap. Like, and my strength was still going up, but it wasn't going up as fast as it was. And I kind of went, man, I feel like shit. And I'm not as happy with my performance. And maybe I need to drop back down. So then I dropped back down to like 385 and things started rolling again. So I was like, okay, right now my body is telling me that you have enough size, focus on your strength.
Yeah. And that's where, a lot of people would manipulate their body weight. For a lot of the smaller guys, it was just get bigger. Yeah. I need to fill out the sleeves of my bench shirt better. I need to fill out the legs of my suit. I need, bigger hips to fill out my briefs, whatever the case may be. We actually then went back to the drawing board and figured out a way of actually doing the bodybuilding necessary to, increase the performance in the equipment, but also at the same time, it was increasing raw output anyway, because, as you get more posterior chain, as you built bigger triceps, as you built all of these body parts, I mean, you naturally just got stronger.
Yeah, it was, for me, it was like, I tell people all the time, I go, listen, if I would have tried to stay 275 or stay under 275, I would have never gained the strength at the rate I did. I would have never ended up where I did. It's a whole lot easier to go, let's just get tons of calories in. Let's just get big and just get strong.
Yeah.
It's a whole lot easier, I believe, to get strong that way than to go, I need the perfect amount of calories. I need to not have any bad food. Not to say that I was the healthiest at the time, but at 380, I'm still hiking. I'm still running around. I'm still doing everything. So,
yeah.
But I mean, I think that was like, it was almost like I don't know if I want to say sacrifice. It was just like, listen, I want to get strong and I'm going to do what it takes. And it doesn't matter to me. Like, I'm going to do it.
And that was also one of the things that I don't think, I think the sport nowadays has alleviated some of this by switching over to a more coefficient-based system. And I mean, again, there's trade-offs everywhere.
Yeah.
It's the economics of everything, the study of resources and allocations. You can either increase your total at all costs, And it's probably going to have an impact on your health, how good you feel, your athleticism overall. Or if, you're not willing to risk your health, that's a trade-off that you're going to have to make. And it's going to end up, you're never going to hit the numbers you could have hit had you been willing to make the requisite sacrifices.
Yeah.
And I think that a lot of people, made sacrifices in both directions. In my case, I know that because I'm, about your height, and me staying 242 far too long. Should have gone up at, one, if not more weight classes to hit numbers that would have been way better. But I artificially kept my body weight at 242 because, professionally speaking, couldn't do it. Couldn't, being on my feet, running around for, 10, 14, 18 hours per shift, couldn't do it.
So here's an interesting story about this. So probably my training partner that had the most potential, if he would have kept with it, and he had other things in life he wanted to do, starting a family and stuff like this. When he's about 6'2" or 6'3". When I first met him, he was like 198 pounds or 196 or something. And when I first introduced him to Dave Tate, he was maybe 210. And Dave looks at him and eyeballs him from top to bottom and top to bottom. And Dave, who sometimes doesn't say much, just looks at him and looks at me and looks at him and goes, "You need to be 330." And then walks away. That's all he said. And then Scott looks at me like, "What the fuck? I need to be that big?" Well, the funny thing is, it turns out he did end up being 330. And he was a delivery driver for Budweiser at 330.
Oh, wow.
This guy was lifetime drug free, squatted over 1,000 pounds, benched over 700 pounds, and pulled 800 pounds.
Wow.
But if he would have never been willing to suck it up and start pounding food, he would have never got that big and would have never got that strong.
No. And that was actually,
and I think to this day, one of the best things that happened to him was that he kept driving for Budweiser. Because even when he didn't want to do the GPP and he didn't want to do that extra work, he was doing it every day anyway. And that actually kept him in really good shape. And he was he was fast as shit running even at 330.
Oh yeah. I mean, if you gain weight in a slow and sustainable fashion, that's not just bloat coming out of whatever pharmacological aid you have going on at the time. The chances of you keeping your athleticism is a little bit better because it's going to be a slower onset. You're going to have time to adapt your GPP, your movement pattern. But at the same time, it's probably going to keep you healthier. Going to be a healthier way to do it. But simultaneously, if you're running around a lot too, and this is where I ran into problems, it's like I would be working these 10, 14 or even longer shifts depending. And it's like, I don't have time to eat.
Yeah.
So if you don't have time to eat for 14 hours or, you're cramming a snack in your mouth in the bathroom, secondary to using the bathroom, because that's your only downtime for the day. It's like, you're not going to get much in, and you're not really going to be eating enough to get bigger.
And as you get bigger and you're doing that same stuff, you're burning more calories.
Oh yeah.
So you need to be eating even more to maintain and keep growing.
Yeah. And I mean, that would be, cause I mean, just kind of fill in the blanks for everybody that might be going, well, what was this guy doing? At the time I was working, overnights as a pharmacist, still a pharmacist, but at the time I was working overnights at a 24-hour pharmacy, and you're just constantly running around doing stuff. So the opportunity to actually eat, minimal, and constantly in motion. So
you may have only moved like 12 feet, but you moved it a lot.
Oh yeah. I used to wear one of those things that the original step counters where you put
Yeah.
it on your hip and it, every time you take a step and it'll translate into how many miles. And it's like every single day, like, okay, the pharmacy's only so big, but you're doing 2.5, 3 miles
Yeah.
in that little span, and you're just constantly just running around in circles. But so, and then you run into that problem. It's like I had gotten into the low 260s a couple times, and it was just like, I am, my feet hurt. Yeah, no, I can't go over a certain body weight without this negatively impacting my professional life. So it's like,
Mhm.
well, if I can't, because powerlifting at its core is a hobby. And if the
Yeah.
hobby
I,
starts
I, I always
interfering,
loved when they called us professionals, and I'm like, I'm not making a living at it. I don't know who you're calling a professional, but
yeah, no. And I mean, like, so if this is impacting my ability to do my actual job, then that's not good. That's not worth it. Because I mean, as high of a priority it may be for us in our own lives, we're still should be multifaceted human beings that also have competing interests. And professionally, your ability to maintain employment and doing something should be important to people.
yeah.
And it was also maybe a little bit different in our day because there was no social media influencer mentality. There was no online coaching to sell. There was no way of monetizing the sport.
Yeah. Which I think is totally different. I think one cool thing with my dislike of social media is it has opened windows and open doors for people to, maybe they don't make money being a powerlifter, but powerlifting is allowing them and giving them enough fame to make a good living coaching or online coaching or selling programs or that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And I think towards what you were talking about, like, I don't think people understand, like, the guys like me who literally said, hey, I'm going to fucking do this and I'm going to do it 100%.
Yeah.
And that meant I worked at a job that I hated for 20 years. And the only reason I did it is because they hired me back and agreed to all my concessions about powerlifting.
Yeah.
And I went, hey, this is a Teamster job. So even though I'm focused on powerlifting, I actually am putting some money away. I'm actually putting something towards a retirement. But this is 40 hours a week and I'm not doing more than 40. And I'm not, like, I don't give two shits about this job.
Yeah.
And there was a long time where I wouldn't date because I'm like, dude, I can't deal with the relationship. I'm a power lifter, man. This is what I'm doing. I'm going to see how far I can push this. And
Yeah.
there's times where, like, I love motorcycles and I promised myself I would never be without one. I sold my motorcycles to get to meets. Like, I didn't buy new vehicles. I didn't buy a house. Like, everything was about powerlifting literally in my life.
Yeah.
So that allowed me to put a bunch of money into food. That allowed me to eat as much as I did. That allowed me to go, hey, I got to rest this weekend because of my narcolepsy and everything. I got to get some sort of sleep and not do anything on a weekend except my training.
Yeah.
Like, so there was that level too. And I think to some extent people don't, when you go, hey, just get bigger, man. Like, are people like, well, I don't know why you're that big. It's not healthy for you. And it's like, dude, at least give me some credit for, like, this was not easy.
Yeah.
Like,
No,
I
and
ate so much I hated eating. And to this day, I still don't really care to eat.
yeah, no, it's what is it? I know Clint Darden has talked about being all in
Yeah.
a lot. I think Dave has also talked about it too. Countless other people have over the years as well. But that being all in or locked into, like, that goal of, hey, this is where I want to go with this. There's a lot of, and I think it comes with the societal shift too, where a lot of the younger people now that are lifters, it's like, I see a lot of them that are going this route, and it's like, well, they don't really have to make some of those choices because the landscape is very different. There's ways of doing this where the sport becomes your sustenance too, with the selling of coaching, and whether it be online or in person. there's more people making a living off of it now. And I mean, hey, you found a way to monetize it. Great. There's pros and cons to that. But the level of all in, or what being all in, is very different now than it was 20 years ago.
Yeah.
It looks very
I
different.
think that's true. And I don't like, I mean, even like listening to what you're saying about, hey, I couldn't get bigger because I had this other stuff. I'm like, I completely and utterly respect that. You had a career, like you had a job. Like I respect that. So I can respect both ends of it. I do think that there's, like, in today's society, it's like, well, I'm all in. Yeah, what is, no, you're not. Like, come on.
Yeah.
And I think that breeds, I'll tell a story about my other training partner, Ethan. So Ethan was this guy who was training at our gym. And I actually used to make fun of him. I would tease him all the time because he would do leg presses with his sweats on. Then he would wrap his knees outside his sweats.
Okay.
And I would laugh at him like, dude, why don't you just fucking wear shorts, man? What's your problem? And they would like drag his bag around like he trained. And I'm like, oh, trained so hard today, you can't pick up your bag, huh? And but he would always come and talk, and he's like, hey, I'm seeing you guys using bands. I've never seen anyone do that. What's that for?
Yeah.
And so he would ask good questions. And finally I go, why don't you just train with us, man? So he started training with us a couple times, and he actually was one of the best guys because he came up to me at one point and he's like, hey, I'd really like to train with you guys, but I gotta tell you, I was a rodeo guy. I was a rancher. I've been smashed by bulls. I've had 2 broken clavicles. I've had this. I've had just tons of injuries. And he's like, I have a job. I have a wife and a child who are very, very important to me. Yeah. So I can tell you that I can be here these days, these times. And he goes, I will give you 100% on those days and times. But this is what I can do. This is what I can't do. Yeah. Which I had a tremendous amount of respect for. And he actually ended up, his whole family, like all the meets, he's the one you saw. His whole family traveled with me everywhere. They took their vacations to go to competitions with me. Wow. But he was upfront and honest. And I see a lot of kids today who it's like, dude, you can't even focus for an hour in the gym. Yeah. Stop saying you're so dedicated and you're training so hard. Like, even an hour is too much for you.
Even still, like, you take a look at them being all in, and I think of a lot of kids that I've tried to help over the years where I'll point something out, it'll usually be a weakness of theirs, and look, this is what's holding you back. And they go to do some of the work on that, the accessory work, and they're so bad at it. They're so weak at it. It proves my point, but at the same time, it's such a shock to their ego that they just don't want to do it. Mm-hmm. And you're just like, well, I don't know where you're going to go from there. Because if you don't want to fix the problem, the root of the problem, because I always explained it this way. You have a leaky roof. Are you going to buy a new bucket, or are you going to fix the roof? I'm
just going to buy a bigger bucket. I might a 55-gallon trash can. That'll fix it.
And that seems to be the approach that a lot of people want to take, because they would rather just keep getting the bigger bucket or getting more buckets or building intricate irrigation systems to gather the water and get rid of it than just get up on the roof, find where the leak's coming from, and patch it up.
I think I saw that in the Three Stooges short. But I think that's true, though. But again, I don't think it. There's some guys out there that are amazing the shit out of me. There's some young guys out there that are putting up numbers that are just unfucking believable. But on the whole, I completely agree with you. And I've had, even with some of my clients, I've had a couple, like, I go, just because you think you're working hard doesn't mean you're actually working hard. Just because you feel like you're working hard, maybe you're just really sensitive. And I'm here because I care. Mm-hmm. I'm not going to go, oh yes, you work so hard, you're doing such a good job. I'm going to go, you're not doing enough. And that's because I actually care. That's because I actually want to see you progress.
Yeah.
And I think back in the day, especially when we had our teams, because we had guys, people that I trained at American Iron Gym, and there was a lot of people, even the owner of American Iron Gym came up one time and he's like, Chad, I don't think your team's ever going to get that big. And I go, why not, man? We're killing it. Like everybody's doing awesome. He goes, yeah, but you guys are really intense and pretty hard on each other. Yeah. And I go, yeah, because we care. Yeah. Like we're family to this day. I still want to know how their kids are doing because they're my nieces and my nephews. I want to know how their parents are doing. Like everyone that was on my team knows my parents and I know their parents. Like we were family because we actually gave a shit and we weren't going to go, hey, you're doing a good job when you weren't.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, that's the whole source of the nickname and why a lot of people call me Uncle Nick. It's because I am that person. And I'm also that uncle that will sit you down with a glass of whiskey and a cigar and tell you things, you know, the way they are. And it may hurt your feelings, but you know, there's, you know, as one of my old training partners used to say, not for nothing, but
I think now that I'm thinking about this again, lifting in life, I'm going back to like my father and his father behind him. Now it's like dads want to be their kids' friends. My dad didn't want to be my friend. My dad wanted me to grow up to be tough and a quality part of society. And he was sure as shit going to let me know when I needed to pick things up.
Yeah. And I think that was, that was a trend. That used to be a generational thing, that your father basically toughened you up so that, you know, because his job wasn't to be your friend. His job was to help you grow into the man that you were going to be. Mm-hmm. And nowadays we've seen a little bit of a shift, but, you know, your father is supposed to be the one to teach you how to deal with adversity and how to, you know, I really hate the phrase be a man, but I mean, because that means so many different things for so many different people. But, you know, your father is a source of challenge. You know, he's supposed to push you. He's supposed to challenge you to become the person you're going to be. And the old guard was supposed to do the same thing. You know, there's, you know, you take a look at pretty much a lot of warrior cultures. Everybody had to pass the gauntlet. You had to be, you know, good enough, and then you had to pass through this thing that was your coming of age challenge. And it was different in different cultures, but everybody had their gauntlet. Nowadays, we've removed the gauntlet. There is no, and I mean, like you listen to a lot of psychologists and sociologists who have vastly different opinions on this. But you know, if you don't have that, you're going to try to create your own source of struggle. And I think, you know, that kind of goes off the rails a lot of times, but you know, it's how things are passed down from one generation to another. And that seems to be sorely lacking in the sport nowadays.
So you just gave me another thought. One of the things when I do train a young person, say I have a young teenager that's not quite tough. One of the reasons I like to have them come in with one of my team and some adults is that I feel like they kind of start getting a full spectrum. You know, one of my friends is a principal, or well, now he heads up the Principals Association, and we used to talk about this, and he would talk about how the vast majority of the kids that had issues were from a single family home, and not blaming single family parents. I think an individual parent can do a good job, but it's a hard job. Yeah. And it's hard because you had the father to discipline and toughen them up, and you had the mother who's like unconditional love no matter what. And so when I bring a young kid in, I go, okay, so I know these guys they're gonna pump them up. They're going to be like, come on, you got this. And that leaves room for me to go to be the stern father, basically. Yeah. That leaves room for me to stand back, watch it, and go, hey, you need to pick it the fuck up. Focus on what the fuck you're doing. I don't have to be nice about it. Because these other guys are going to go, come on, yeah, you got this. Let's go. And I remember something I think AJ said about Louis. He was like, Louis was never the one that he wasn't on the people all the time. It was the other teammates that were on each other. And Louis kind of oversaw it and stepped in when he needed to step in. And so I think maybe one of the things we're missing now, and when you had gear, you kind of had to have a team. Training raw, you don't really have to have a team, and there's not so much reliance on each other. And I think even with the team, even when you have a team, like my team was, everybody was so different that everyone brought something different to the table.
Yeah.
You had the true hard asses. You had the guys that are like, pick it up, you pussies. We got to get out of here. Come on, hurry it up. And then you had the rah-rah guys. And, well, we never had a lot of rah-rah guys, but you had all these different perspectives to round the whole thing out to make the best athletes. Yeah. And when you train alone, and I'm an antisocial person, I don't mind training alone. I know you train alone a lot too. But we've been in that team scenario.
Yeah.
And I think maybe that's part of it. Maybe we need to get back to people training in teams and actually having quality teams.
Oh, well, I think so. And I think that's something that's missing because, boy, I'm going to get back on my soapbox.
I like your soapboxes
about these kids. But it's perfectly fine to be antisocial. Okay. But and training alone, but a lot of these kids nowadays that train alone, they're still training in commercial gyms. So they're training in powerlifting gyms. Why are you training alone? They don't have spots. We see video after video of these kids squatting alone, wiping out, flipping the ER rack over themselves, or, benching by themselves and damn near crushing their throat. It's like, or, the bar bouncing out of those crappy hooks in the ER rack and falling back down on their faces. It's like, why are you training alone? You're in a powerlifting gym. There's other why do you need your own ER rack? It baffles my mind because, and just to kind of scroll through like a quick overview, I started out at Chalet's gym, went away to college, was training with, Julie Scanlon, Dave Nettles, Brian Weston, who you probably remember from the WPO days. And then started training off and on with the metal militia guys that were closer to me, like Jeff McVicker. So I had group training with them, but the vast majority of my training when I was, younger on the upswing, just because of time, professional constraints and whatnot, because you used to have to drive a long way to get to where people were. So, when I was training with McVicker and them, you're talking about an hour and a half each way. And, when you've already worked an overnight, you're not going to do that too much. Or if you've got a super long shift ahead of you, you can't fit that in on times when everybody else is training. So, the majority of my training was done alone in a commercial gym. But there were other people that I was at least friendly enough to train around, where it's like, okay, well, I need spots. I need people that kind of know what they're doing. But so why wouldn't you share the bench with them? Why wouldn't you share the rack with them? Like you're obviously doing the same thing, and you're able to have more eyes on you, because every day, or people every day now are videoing themselves from the best looking angle to make it look good on social media. It's like, we can't critique this. Because I'm getting like, this is the best camera angle, so it looks the prettiest. Or, it's the thirst trap angle, which people talk about. And it's like, okay, well, you just want attention, but this isn't going to tell me what I need to see what you would need to fix. Or like, show me what's really going on here. But if you're training with a person in real time, they can move around you. They can, like, something didn't look right on that last set, so I'm going to take 2 steps over this way and just kind of see it from a different angle, see if I can't pick this apart, see if I can't tell you something that's going to help you. But nowadays we've all kind of gotten a little bit gun shy on telling people, hey man, like, not for nothing, but you got a problem here, you may want to fix it because it's kind of holding you back. Our generation, it was like, no, everybody was, also, there weren't many coaches. but everybody was coaching each other through everything. And it also ties back to that comment about the technical proficiency or the technical mastery. When you were in gear, it was like, hey man, when you're on your way down, you're kind of collapsing and you're losing your belly, or you're rolling off of, the part of your traps that you should be set up on, or you're tucking too early, or all of these little things that, people you would talk people through the lift, even as a handler at a meet, in the old denim shirts, your handoff person, as soon as they cleared the platform and you started lowering the bar, they're already cueing you throughout the entire lift. You go to meets now, you do not hear one cue throughout the entire execution of a lift outside of people screaming up.
Yeah.
Like, no shit, what direction are you going to go in?
I think I have to say back in the day, like training at more commercial gyms, there were groups that just it was all rah bullshit.
Yeah.
I mean, it happened back in the day, but I think there was a lot more people and a lot more groups that actually did care.
Oh yeah.
And I love, because I was really against online training for the longest time. And then I finally figured out how I could review videos and video me reviewing their video to get like real-time cueing as far as the video goes, not real time as far as the lifting goes.
Yeah.
And I mean, I've helped some top lifters and even had some top guys that are strong as shit. And it just, I watch them and follow them. And it just irritates me so much that they're making these little mistakes and not lifting what they could, that I'll actually write them and go, hey, can I do a video review of your lifts? Would you mind? And, usually they're like, no, I wouldn't mind at all. That'd be awesome.
If they really are a competitor, they want that.
Yeah. Yeah. And so like, I've gotten really good, and I've had some top guys go, holy shit, Chad, I can't believe the amount of detail you go into to do this. But still, like you said, I'm reviewing videos for all of my online clients. They have to do a certain amount of videos. And it seems like I'm always going, dude, move to the side, like stop. I don't need the Instagram video. That video does me no good. I need these videos from these angles. And I'm probably going to tell you the next week, hey, I need you to go from this angle.
Yeah.
Because you kind of fixed this, but now I'm not sure where you are there. And so there's no match like in person where you can actually walk around and do it. And even when I had, I just did an interview with Marshall Johnson, which is not up yet, but it will be. And I was talking to him and I go, listen, if somebody called me up and say I'm from Georgia, or, hey, I'm from South Dakota, how much would it be to online train? I'm going to be like, wait a minute, how close are you to Marshall?
Yeah.
Because even though I think I'm a really good online coach, I still know the limitations of being an online coach. And I would rather refer you to Marshall, or if you're in Georgia, I would rather refer you to Goggins, because in person, they will do better than I can do online.
Oh God.
Like, because there's just, you have to, it's just the way it is.
Well,
and so like, if you can have a team and have people there watching you, it's going to be way fucking different. Now, then again, you have to all be willing to learn and understand. And one of the best things somebody can do to learn is coach other people.
Oh yeah. Well, at the same time, if you're going to coach other people and you don't know what you're doing and you're doing it as a learning experiment, there gets to be some ethical issues in charging for that service. But, at the same time, I kind of chuckle for two different reasons, because I'm also reflecting back on a lot of lifters that I've helped over the years. I hate the word coach. I really do. I always will be quick to say that, kind of like I'm a mentor first. I'm going to teach you how to coach yourself, because if you take accountability for your own training, we are our own best coaches, because we're the only ones that truly know all of the variables within ourselves and our lives. And nobody else is going to be able to do as good a job as we can if we remain objective and self-aware of what's going on in our day to day, and especially with our training. But I laugh because I'm thinking about all the people that I've helped over the years. And when I would watch the lift, I would just keep walking in a half circle around them, looking at it from multiple angles throughout a set, or, on different singles, I would be watching from different points. And I'm like, yeah, because I need that 3D vision, not just if I'm going to help you perform better or get stronger, but I'm also watching it through the eyes of a judge. And it's like, hey, you got to change this because that's never going to pass. So if it doesn't pass on the platform, it doesn't really matter what you did in the gym.
Well, I think you could be looking at them and be like, okay, well, this is happening, but from this angle, I can't totally tell why. So I need to move around and check, like if his elbows are popping out. Well, wait a minute. I can't see if his shoulder, is it because his shoulder? Let me move around and see.
Yeah.
And when I review in video, there's times where I go, hey, this is happening, but because I can't see this part, I'm not totally sure why. So I think it's this, but next time, do give me a video from this angle so I can see.
Or, as things change, like you said before, as they get better with one thing, something else is going to shift. Because there's always going to be the weakest link in the chain is constantly going to change as you get stronger in some areas, or your, proficiencies technically catch up to the new strength in one area. It's going to expose a weakness in another. So, like I think about myself, like for years, I was weak, locking out benches, and then came the metal militia years. And then it's like, all right, well, if I could at least get it 3 inches off of my chest, then I'm golden.
Yeah.
But I never would have thought that would have been the issue.
And it's that continual chasing of the weak link.
Exactly.
And that weak link could be technical. It could be nutrition. It could be recovery, but you're always chasing something and fixing it. And as soon as you fix it, something else is going to show its head.
Exactly. And that's what, a lot of, like I said, nowadays, a lot of people just want likes on social media. And it's like, they're not chasing the weak link. They are exploiting the strong link. Because I think is actually one of the biggest issues I see nowadays, especially with people that are training conjugate. I see a lot of my friends posting videos, and there's different movements or different ways of doing something that's a builder and a tester. And too many people are constantly using testers repeatedly, expecting it to build. It's never going to be a builder. Like, find something you suck at.
Well, yeah, it's the same thing. What's the weak link? Now, what max effort movement is going to fucking hammer that weak link and get it stronger?
Or what accessories are going to make that weak link stronger to the point where, that max effort gets better?
Yes.
Because at the same time, if you keep doing the max effort work that's going to focus on it, I made this mistake in my early conjugate days. I remember picking a max effort exercise because I embraced the whole, okay, well, this is what I suck at. But all of my accessory work was wrong to fix it.
Right.
And I remember some of that max effort work stayed stagnant for months. And I'm like, what am I doing wrong? Oh, it's all my accessory work is just wrong. So I think that's one of the biggest issues I see with a lot of people nowadays is like they're constantly using testers. As one of my friends always said, there's a difference between building strength and demonstrating strength. And if you keep demonstrating it, are you actually building anything?
Yeah. Like, for example, if you have a mid thoracic weakness that you roll over and you're like, okay, I'm going to do a safety squat. Good morning. And you keep going up and you fail at the same point and you fail at the same point. Are you really making it stronger holding the position? No. That's going to happen when you're picking accessory work and you're forcing and holding that position even when you're getting exhausted. That's what's going to make it stronger.
Yeah. And of course, the other reason, going back to laughing when you were talking about Marshall and then mentioning Goggins, it just reminded me of the day I met you in Vegas at the Olympia, and we were all sitting at a buffet table together.
Oh, that was a great. I actually made Marshall tell this. Was that the deadlift when I ruined
That was
Marshall's deadlift?
after the deadlift. That
I
was
made at the
after
end. I'm
that.
like, you can't get off this podcast without telling the story. But oh yeah, when we went out with Vinny and was Vinny at that? Was that the one with Vinny?
No, Vinny wasn't there.
Oh
It was.
no, that was oh God.
This was the
That's
day.
the
Yeah,
Rob
you know what
Luendo
I'm gonna say.
story.
Yeah, the Rob Leondo story. It's like Rob took some swing at something because the Olympia is all single ply. And so you're talking, it's like, so who's this Rob Leondo guy? And the person you said it to is me. I'm
Yeah,
Rob
was
Leondo.
him. It was so fun. I got to get him on here because that story was funny. That was a cool ass night though. Like if you stop back and think of the people that were at that table,
Oh my God.
and we were there for a long, long fucking time. It seemed like,
Dude, they kicked us out. They kicked us out of the buffet.
yeah, I do remember coming up and asking us. Yeah. I mean, Ryan Kidd, man, there was just so many people. There were so many big name people all sitting there. Huge people too.
Dude, oh God, yeah. Like I'm surprised they had enough food for us because it was you, me, Marshall and Kathy, Jeff Frank, Mike Greeno, Lance Ross, Steve Goggins, Loyando Cartwright. That's just our end of the table that I remember off the top of my head. But I also remember like we were
that was
there.
A fun night.
I remember when we paid, they're like, there's a 2-hour time limit. 4 hours later, they came to kick us out. Like, look, we're closing the restaurant down. It's like we stayed at a buffet for 4 hours. And occasionally we would all go back up for like another dessert or another cup of coffee or something. But we were mostly done eating. We were just talking and telling stories.
Those are the best times. Those are some of my favorite times from powerlifting. Like over, and I think that's kind of where when like Vincent was saying, it's not really about the numbers.
No,
like the numbers are important, but there's this point past that, the connections you make, the people you hung out with, the impact you had on people. And like, I mean, I'm weird because I am antisocial and I spend a lot of time alone, but there's a lot of people that if they called me, what do you need, man? What can I do?
Yeah.
You know?
Well, one of the guys that I used to train with a lot was, ex special forces. And he said, like powerlifting is kind of a lot like being in a unit because we have each other's ass and we basically are putting our hands in our lives in each other's hands, multiple times a week, in that regard. So he's like, you have that cohort thing where you've had your life in this person's hands and vice versa, so there's always going to be a bond over that. So no matter how much time passes, that baseline level of brotherhood and respect remains, and that shared experience. And it's like so many other things, but kind of unlike so many other things too, because really you're putting your safety and well-being in the hands of the people that you're training with and vice versa. And it just adds that level, because I mean, you can be classmates with somebody, but that level of care is not quite there.
Yeah. And if you have a true team, just that wanting them to succeed and that person knowing how bad you want them to succeed, that's kind of a big deal. I mean, you spend a lot of time together, you spend a lot of effort together, and it wasn't to make money. That's for damn sure.
No,
it was just a pure, true passion for what you love.
Yeah. And back then, I mean, there definitely wasn't any financial gain in there because it cost us all something. Nobody was walking away with any money.
Yeah. Even when you did win money, you're like, hey, that almost paid for the trip.
I know, right? Especially if it was one of those things where it involved like flying in and 3 or 4 days in a hotel and 3 or 4 days food. Or
I had at the time it was a really good contract with Muscle Milk, and still at the end of the year, I spent way more.
Yeah,
because even if I did get a good sponsor, I'm like, well, I want to, because Ethan and Carla took some trips that they paid for to come help me. If I made any money, I'm like, I'm paying for their airline. I'm paying for the room, like whatever I can do. And so by the time you're done, you're like, all right, well, I didn't make no money, but at least it
I broke
helps.
even. Yeah. Or even if you didn't break even, it's like, hey, I'm only out a couple $100 when I should be out a couple grand.
Yeah.
And that was back when I also laugh because kids nowadays will consider anything a sponsorship. And I'm like, you don't have a sponsorship. You have a discount code.
Yeah.
You are free advertising for a reduced rate of the things you do purchase.
Yeah.
The days of the real sponsorships, because I had friends that were actually sponsored by, a handful of the bigger supplement companies, 50 years ago, when the sponsorships were real, like, hey, we give you this much cash a month stipend, and we pay for your competition costs.
Yeah.
It's like, that's a sponsorship. You've got a discount code for running around being a free billboard. That's not, and now at least they're being honest about it, with the term ambassador, because you're not a sponsor.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, well, I'm an ambassador for this. It's like, okay, you're still like,
you're a salesperson.
Yeah. You're an unpaid salesperson. And, people think that that's something. And with the number of supplement companies and clothing companies out there, everybody's got one of these things nowadays.
Yeah.
It's gotten ridiculous. And it's, anytime you have, the bar lowered by the fact that there's so many different opportunities to have, you're watering down the pool. I've seen people.
That was even back in the day when I was doing it. I was like, man, we need to start a union or something. I go, because there's too many lifters that will do things way too cheap. And if they don't do it, they'll go to another lifter. Like, lifters are like, oh my God, I got free supplements, man. And I'm like, who gives a shit? You probably wouldn't take them if they didn't give them to you.
Yeah.
And they're not paying for anything. You're not getting any money. They're using your name, maybe even doing an ad with you for nothing. You're not getting nothing.
Yeah. I can remember, when you would have, you had the Arnold and you had the Olympia Expos every year, and some of the other ones like LA Fit Expo came along and stuff. But, at least back then, if you go to these things, the bigger companies, if you had a sponsorship through them, they're paying for your hotel room. They're paying for your travel expenses because you were going there on behalf of them to represent the company. And I mean, granted, as the market flooded, like the profits started decreasing, and there was, naturally going to be like a contracting base of funds to sponsor athletes in that fashion. But anytime you have something like that where you are diluting a pool just because of an overabundance of companies, it's going to happen.
Yeah, it's interesting. So what you said earlier, I was going to tell you to get the fuck out of my head, man. What's up with that? Like with the coaching part, like I honestly would rather, I describe myself as a guide.
Yeah.
I'm a guide on your journey. And I tell this, I actually had this talk with a couple of my in-person clients the other day. I'm like, listen, you have to invest in yourself. You coming here and just doing what I tell you is not going to work. It's going to do something, but you have to invest in this. Like when I had a client the other day, I go, are you doing your glute stretches? And she's like, well, what are glute stretches? I go, the ones that stretch your glute. And she's like, oh, I don't know. I go, so then you're not doing the stretches.
Yeah.
I'm like, you have to learn.
You're not.
And I go, if you've been here and you don't know, I'm not saying you got to learn every little muscle. You don't have to know what the sternocleidomastoid muscle is. But you need to know your hamstrings, your glutes, your thighs, your shoulders, your chest, your back. Like you need to invest something into this. Don't just come here and think this is going to happen. And I actually train a trainer. He trains a lot of high-end like business people. And I train him for powerlifting to compete. And we were talking about it one day, and he goes, the vast majority of my clients, I'm just a check. He goes, I'm a box. They go, oh, my family's on me to get in shape. Click. I went to train with so-and-so.
Yeah.
And it's like, how does anybody expect to like actually achieve? Because like you said, I can never know you like you can know you.
Yeah.
So my job is to guide you to learn to know yourself.
My job is to teach you what you need to learn to coach yourself and not need me anymore.
Essentially, yes.
Yeah. My goal is
Which
my
makes
own,
me a horrible businessman, but oh well.
yeah. My goal is my own obsolescence, and not to mention the fact that because I make absolutely no money from the sport whatsoever, because any of the lifters that and they'll say I coach them, and I'm like, no, any of the lifters I have mentored, I have never charged.
Yeah.
I never charged anybody for meet handling. I have, anytime I've gone to a meet to handle somebody, if it involved traveling, it's been on my own dime, except for one person who said they'd feel so guilty if like I flew across the country to help them, like they wouldn't be able to sleep at night. So I begrudgingly agreed to that.
No, that sounds totally fair to me. I think that.
But at the same time, it's like a friend. It's like, yeah, of course I will come help my friend.
Yeah.
You know.
That goes both ways though, buddy. Sometimes the bigger man goes, all right, I'll let you help me with the trip.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I begrudgingly, agreed. But, a lot of times, and I mean, as everything shifted, because nowadays there's a huge push for, I guess maybe the last 8 years, maybe, 8, 9 years, they've been pushing for, the meet directors to be paying their judges. A lot of times it's like, okay, fine. You feel like giving me just give me gas money for the drive here. Cause it was like a 5-hour drive. But a lot of times I refuse payment. I just like, I'm here to, it goes back to a conversation we had months ago where it's like, are you really giving back to the sport if you're taking something from it? And so, because I was never charging people for help, my built-in obsolescence where like, look, I've taught you everything you need to know that I can give you. Now go, teach yourself or learn, some things from other people. It was my goal to do that as effectively as possible, because I want you to do better than I did, which is also something we've talked about in the past.
Mm-hmm.
But it's also no hard feelings, because you're pursuing your path. I've done everything I can to help you, so you keep doing that. But I'm not going to hold on to somebody just as a source of revenue either.
That's where it's, for me, I'm kind of on
their thinking for them. Like, no, I'm not going to do that.
Yeah. I'm kind of on the opposite end of that, because I do now make my living through coaching. But at the same point, I fully believe that you can't just go and have someone tell you. I've never met a top athlete who just goes and does what a person tells them. Yeah. There's probably a few out there somewhere, but like you do need to be invested in it. And ideally, even the people I coach, like if you spend enough time with me, you should be able to go coach someone else.
Yeah.
And if you no longer want to work with me, that's fine. If you want to work with me, I'll work with you the rest of your life.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm a guide. And it has gotten to the point with some of my clients where it's like, hey, here's what I think we should do. What do you think?
Yeah.
Your body. How do you think things have been going? Let's put our heads together and do this, which is kind of weird because they're paying me, but they're paying me for my advice. They're not paying me to tell them what to do.
At that point, it's not so much that you're a coach, you're a consultant.
Yes.
Because you are an extra set of eyes that are going to maybe see something that they can't see because they are not knowledgeable or experienced enough, or cannot remain objective enough to see about themselves.
Yeah. And even, that kind of goes back to one of my things about the team is like, I had the most knowledge when I started my team. So I taught what I knew. Mm-hmm. And then because I had such a wide variety of people, they would start throwing in, because I'm like, if you're going to be on this team, you're in this team. That means you're here to help load, handle. You should be coaching as well as me coaching.
Mm-hmm.
And this whole symbiotic thing, this whole little mini universe should keep growing.
Yeah.
Like there was times after on a weekend, say we would all just sit around after training and it's like, hey, Scott's bench has kind of been stagnant for a while. Why do you think that is? And everybody's like, well, I think it might be his triceps. So it seems to me he's having trouble in the bottom, so maybe it's his back. And then we would throw these ideas around, and then they would laugh at me because I would come into the gym with a huge grin on my face, and they're like, what the hell did you dream about last night? And I'm like, I got a good exercise for us today. And, so I was always trying to let's push the limit. Let's take things further. Yeah. And a lot of what we ended up doing wasn't all my stuff. It's like when people go, Louis came up with all this stuff. And I go, no, Louis didn't come up with all this stuff.
No.
I go, there's a lot of other guys at Westside that came up with stuff that Louis kind of got credit for. And he should get some credit for it because Louis created Westside. So there's a lot of the stuff I learned over the years was my training partner's stuff. It's stuff that they came up with, and I'm like, oh, that actually sounds really good. Let's do that. Let's see how it works. And so the 2 heads and 4 heads is better than one kind of thing.
Yeah. And on that same vein, that's something that I think is also grossly missing nowadays is that level of creativity. I know that a few of us have gone back and forth, most notably me and Clint Darden, and we try to out conjugate each other on certain exercises, and we're constantly sending each other ideas back and forth. And but
I noticed your House of Biceps shirt on too.
I had to wear that, but at the same time, it's one of those things where as we've become more mainstream with the sport, people are not looking for ways to adapt and overcome because everything is prescriptive, especially if you have a coach, because the coach is going to tell you everything. And one of the things that I do miss about the sport is that late 90s into the demise of the original WPO years, where you saw conjugate really taking a sharp upswing. But I think some of the best creativity was coming from small commercial gyms, people training conjugate alone, where they had to figure out a way to implement it without the same equipment that a gym like Westside had. And you would look at some of these setups that people would create or concoct with whatever they had available, and you're just like, wow, this is how you do that? And you're like, that's cool. That's ingenuity right there. That was I have a problem, I need to fix it. I can't do it the way everybody else does. I need to make alterations so that I can effectively implement this, but it's not going to look right. But as long as I get the same end result, it doesn't matter.
I completely agree. But first, I want to know if anyone caught the fact of a pharmacist saying prescriptive. Totally caught that. I think one of the greatest things, I grew up training in my basement by myself.
Same.
I had books to read. And I'm like, okay, I don't have this equipment. How can I do this somehow? How can I get an exercise that's going to work these muscles?
Yeah.
And even when we started training at the gym, I posted some of our old videos and I didn't have a monolift. So I made an extra set of pins, and we had enough guys where you use the pins, you pulled the pins like a monolift.
Yep.
And so we didn't have a glute ham raise. Okay, what else can we do to get that same sort of thing? And that, to me, that was a huge fun part of it.
Oh yeah.
And even when I first learned Westside conjugate, and I was having trouble and it wasn't working, for me, it was like, no, you picked this system. You learned from Dave Tate for a reason. You're not executing it properly, so you need to go deeper. And then it allowed me to go, well, wait a minute, just because this is the way it's set up, these are the principles that you like. Can you tweak it, keep these main principles, and make it work better for you?
Yeah.
And so we were always tweaking the system to fit what we needed. And I'm like, dude, I got 4 or 5 different guys. Like, one guy's tall and skinny, one guy's shorter and chubby, or one guy's older, one guy's younger. Like, how can I tweak all this and tweak it in ways that we can all still train together and all get what we need?
Yeah.
And like, that was fun because I got to use my mind. Like, I got to think.
Oh, yeah. I used to go into it was a small local chain of commercial gyms that's now been bought out by Gold's Gym. And I used to go in there and I used to think like, okay, well, this is what I need to do. How can I construct something with the very limited equipment I have to make this work? And, I think that critical thinking and problem solving is something that society in general is just missing, but made us better, because once you know how to come up with kind of like the, everybody would use the term wish.com version nowadays. But, if you could make the wish.com version of like a GHR or, knock off a way to like kind of set something up so you can rig some bands to it, or, whatever the case may be, like, you then have that knowledge. It's like, oh, well, okay, well, one of your friends is training in a similar set of circumstances, maybe just a little bit different, but how to adapt that idea that you came up with and tell them, well, hey, why don't you try this?
Yes.
Like you can still do these exercises. You're just going to have to rig it this way.
Well, I think what happens is, I think this, as you said, it triggers that problem solving and that thought process. And I think what I see, and I've told this story before, like, I'll see somebody, Mark Bell was a great one. Mark Bell would put up some weird exercise, and I'd be like, I know when I go to the gym tonight, I'm going to see this.
Yep.
And so I would go in, and I would see somebody doing it, and I'd be like, okay, just because I'm a smart ass, I'm going to go ask them why they're doing it.
Yep.
Very rarely do they know why they're doing it. Very rarely do they know what muscle it works or how to put it into their system.
Yeah.
They're like, no, I saw Mark Bell doing it and it looked fun.
Yep.
And I'm like, so like, your whole training, you just want someone to tell you what to do and you have zero understanding.
Nope.
Like, if you're doing a row, you don't even know what you're working. Nope. All you're doing is mimicking a video you saw. And you're not even doing that very well.
No.
And I think that's how are you ever going to truly get strong? How are you ever going to understand your weakest link if you can't figure out those simple things?
If they continually train alone, they never will, because nobody's ever going to have that come to Jesus moment with them. And, it kind of, you go back to it. Like, one of the guys who was a major influence on me training wise, well, it was Kirk. And Kirk was, he was very blunt. So if he saw somebody do something dumb, I'm not going to say a 45-pound plate was thrown at you like the Power Unlimited documentary suggests. Maybe not a 45-pound plate. I've seen other things go flying in the gym, but which that man was startlingly strong in very, very strange ways, which is something that powerlifters used to be concerned with, was just strength in all facets. But he would use the tactic of kind of making fun of you, and then when he was done having his laugh, he's like, look, this is how you fix it. But it was like, that bullying to kind of, or the mockery to kind of make you go, all right, yeah, this kind of does suck. And once you kind of accepted that, it's like, okay. And then he would tell you how to fix it. And then he would spend months every time he saw you telling you, hey, like, let me see it. Show it. Is it getting better? Like there was at least the follow-up care, like, hey, are you getting better? And I mean, a lot of lifters used to have that approach. Other people had different approaches of getting your attention. Another one that I knew was like, that's good, but if you want to squat an extra 50 pounds without having to get any stronger at all, just by fixing these technical things, like, are you interested? It's like, well, who wouldn't be? However you get the buy-in. But a lot of these kids nowadays, they want the prescriptive method. They want somebody to do all the thinking for them. But because they're not in your body, they don't live your everyday life, they're never going to be as effective as what you can be with yourself if you learn enough to do it. And I think one of the other things too, with going back to, our kind of heyday, if you will, when we were younger, and figuring all this stuff out was, we did have magazines, we had that. We had to take the written word and figure out how to implement it. And that was huge because there was very limited resources on the internet.
Right.
Especially in the 90s, there was very limited written resources on the internet. And so we had the muscle magazines, and Powerlifting USA specifically for us. And, I mention this to people all the time, and I don't think they realize, if you have one of the original copies of the Westside Barbell Book of Methods, it didn't really flow so well, did it?
I don't think anything Louis wrote ever flowed well.
But here's one of the things, and I've been told that my memory is too good for certain people with questionable past to hang out with me. But there was one day I kind of noticed it, and I was like cross-referencing. I was like, this is literally, he just cut and pasted all of his Powerlifting USA articles into kind of, and not even a chronological order, but as best as they would fit into chapters to make sense. Literally, like, you're having like everything, like, oh my God, I've read this before. You go back, you find like the Powerlifting USA from June 1999. You're like, oh, well, this part is this article, because Louis had the monthly article. And a lot were figuring this stuff out as we went, as Louis was figuring it out and writing about it.
Right.
Because he really was, hey man, this is what we're doing at Westside. Like, here it is. Like, this is the new idea. And as the ideas changed, and as the ideas were refined and shifted, that was reflected in the monthly articles. And you could kind of track Westside's progress, or Conjugate's progress as a training system, through those articles. And that's, it's kind of like if you read the Book of Methods after having read all of Louis' Powerlifting USA articles, you start noticing like, oh, I've read this article before, and I remember this part. Okay, so it's just a compilation of all of his Powerlifting USA articles in a way that kind of, makes sense if you're following it. But
I was mentioning to somebody, I'm like, yeah, I want to write a book. And he's like, dude, you already wrote a book. Just take out your articles and put them in a book. You're done.
Yeah, that's basically the Book of Methods. But when we were reading these articles in real time, we were like, okay, well, how would I implement that? Because not everybody trains at Westside. Not everybody's got a powerlifting gym that's within a drivable distance. And think back to the 90s, how many people had monoliths?
Yeah, it was not many
at all. There's maybe a couple dozen powerlifting gyms throughout the country.
Yeah, I think when I first started, I had met the guys at Diablo Barbell in Concord, which is about 3 hours away.
Yeah.
And like, luckily they always wanted to help me. And they're like, hey, you ever want to come over and train in our monolith? You can. So it's like, all right, dude, like, I'm coming this weekend because I need to because it's different. If you walk things out and you go to a meet and you want to actually use the monolith, it's fucking different.
Oh yeah. Or, and I think and I've also talked about that too, where you take a look at people from that era who were training alone in commercial gyms or training without specialty equipment. Like, some of the problems, because competition equipment was not standardized.
Yeah.
Go to one meet.
You would get different meat benches.
Oh yeah.
Different monoliths. Like, some of them you'd try to get under it, didn't have this much play in it. And you're trying to get set, and you're like, God, can I have my guy hold this thing so I can get in here or what?
Yeah. So the quality of equipment, nothing was standardized. Nothing was, and the monoliths were designed very differently. And anybody that lifted on one of the original like the actual company monolift, if you actually squatted out of one of their monolifts, like the hooks, the way the hooks operated, very different. You know, your old squat bars compared to the newer squat bars. And sometimes like when I was in college, we didn't have squat bars. So we're constantly going from, you know, when I was training with Dave Nettles, it's like we would go to meets and it's like, okay, well, they've got a Passanella squat bar, but we've had a York 45-pound standard power bar. So that extra thickness is like, it's not sitting right on our backs. It kind of like threw us off because we couldn't adjust on the fly at a meet. You know, you have to learn how to do that. And you need practice with it. Like I remember when deadlift bars became more and more common, the number of people that would get red lighted for hitching because you catch the whip.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden it's like, oh, it's like you catch the whip and now you just hitched, red light.
But I think that goes, like you said, I think that goes back to crediting some of the toughness of the older guys.
Oh yeah.
We didn't know what we were going to have. We went to the meet. We're going to do the best we can, and whatever's there, we're going to adapt to it.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Like there wasn't any, oh, well, I'm not doing the meet now, or, oh my God, this sucks. It's like, dude, that's what we got. So what? You know, or they have one monolift on the platform. So you got to warm up walking it out. Then you're going to go try to use the monolift.
It's you run what you brung. And I remember I heard one guy who was, and it was always the mentality that I tried to encapsulate when I was on the platform. It's like, look, I came to play. Like I'll figure it out. I'll adapt. You know, like I'll find a way to get through this. Because I mean, you would be training on just a standard power bar. You would be walking your squats out and you show up and it's like monolift and they're swinging the racks and, you know, or you've got a certain type of bench. I remember going to meets where there was one meet where I was helping some friends at. Unfortunately, it was because I got hurt like 3 weeks out, had to pull out of the meet. It was the first year that they brought powerlifting back to the Arnold. After the WPO died. And so that was the first XPC meet. And so many people bombed out because they couldn't adapt to the sponginess of the platform and the squat. So every time you go to pick the weight, you take the weight off of the mono starts coming up out of the floor because the floor was spongy. So nobody was changing their rack heights. And so many people were getting clipped by the hooks and getting thrown everywhere. And then the bench was so spongy the minute you took the hand off, because everybody was taking the hand off and then trying to go and break and start going down, you know, you're still sinking into the pad. You hadn't stabilized. So it was kind of throwing people's balance points off. And so many, the people that made it through the squat were now bombing in the bench. And it was like, you know, last man standing kind of stuff.
I mean, I remember I used to always go, because I would always be on the second day almost if it was a 2-day competition. And I would always get there early. And then the first day is like, okay, I want to go check out the warm-up room. I want to check out the equipment. Like you said with benches, I didn't know if I was going to have a suede bench. I didn't know if I was going to have a leather bench, a vinyl bench. I didn't know how thick the padding was going to be. Like you would get completely different benches at different meets.
Yeah. And nowadays you still see that a little bit, but it kind of crosses federation lines because every federation has their preferred equipment. So it's going to be roughly the same from meet to meet. But if you hop feds, which not a lot of people do anymore, you're going to have a totally different set of equipment now. So, okay, you're benching on a standard power bar versus in an ER rack versus, you know, a specialized bench bar off of like a Thompson fat pad in the IPA, you know? So a lot of people, you know, and this is another thing that I like about our generation is because we had so much variability and grew with the equipment, not just supportive equipment, but the actual equipment. We know all the nuances of pretty much every setup that we're going to encounter. So if we're handling a lifter, it's like, hey, look, and I've done this at meets before. I'm like, hey, look, you know, this particular bar is hurting you because of this. Like, just do this instead. Like, and it'll help you get through this, because as you're doing this the way you're used to doing it, the equipment's actually negatively impacting you.
Mm-hmm.
And, we at least have that knowledge base from decades of using different equipment. So, you see some of these kids, they come in and it's like, well, this isn't the ER, the kind of ER walkout type setup that I train on in the gym. And it's like, all of a sudden you read the meet didn't go as planned post.
Yeah.
Because wow, you just couldn't pick the weight and let the rack swing out, or maybe take an adjustment step because you had a monolift, and you don't, like, a monolift is not a complicated piece of machinery. You still have to find your feet. Like, if you need to walk out of the monolift, go ahead and walk out, take a step, get your feet right. If you don't know how to pick and go.
Do you think that's a mental toughness thing?
Oh yeah. Like, they totally crumble when something doesn't look the way that it used to, or the fact that they're so dependent upon a particular piece of equipment.
Yeah.
Like, I know there's one gym not too far from me that a lot of kids that I've helped in the past train at, and it's like the bench pad is worn and crushed down in certain places. So it's like, it becomes like doing a decline.
Yeah.
And everybody hits giant PRs on this one bench, but it's like they go to meets and it's like, I can't figure out what happened. It's like, yeah, you've totally changed the angle and trajectory of the bar, because, you've basically worn away,
or it's
pad
over padded, and they're lifting their ass up, and then they go to the meet and they get called on it.
Well, that's actually another thing that happens to some of the lifters that train on that bench too, because they're so used to benching on a decline, and it's like, okay, their shoulders are down here, their butt's up here, and then they go to a regular, a bench that, not that case. So they're used to benching like this. So either the number is completely skewed because the angle of trajectory off their chest is different, or their butt pops up.
So here's an interesting concept. Do you ever think about, what if you started right now?
Ooh.
I mean, because like you said, I describe people, I go, listen, I had an Arnold or a Weider or a Frank Zane book, and I had, this is what a bent over row is. And then I had a couple pictures, and then I had to go do a row, and I'm like, okay, I'd go back and go, did I feel the muscles that they said it's supposed to feel? No, I didn't. Okay, then I'm probably not doing it wrong. I'm probably not doing it right. So let me keep playing with it till I can feel that particular muscle that they said I should feel. So like, I had to be like my own scientist, and I had to work through it. Where, like, today I think about this, well, if I got on the internet and I saw a video, would I just mimic the video, or would I still have said, well, wait a minute, this is what it's supposed to be working? Would I have worked it? And then also, like you said about the progression, should we almost, like within new lifters, should we almost kind of make them go through a progression similar to what we did?
So this is where the mindset that we grew up with is very different.
Yes.
I think, me being the tail end of Gen X, I think there's a generational difference in our mindsets. That would have very heavily influenced. So, I mean, if I was to do it all over today, do I have the same mindset? Like, we have to really look at the parameters of that question. Do I have the same mindset? Do I have the same life experiences that I had leading up to this point? Is the only thing that's different the accessibility of information, equipment, and the social media factor, or the political climate of the sport itself? Or are we, holding that steady? I mean, there's a lot of other variables that go into it, but if I was to do it all over again, I don't know if I would do any of it. I think a big part of why a lot of our generation ended up in the sport was because it was an underground activity. We were the underground. We were rebelling against something, or we were trying to prove something. We were I hate to say a lot of us were emotionally or psychologically damaged, and that's why we decided to torture ourselves in this way.
I think there was a lot of, and it's interesting if you go through the list and you start looking at the athletes, there's a lot of horror stories in our pasts.
Oh yeah. The more of us that actually will sit around and talk about it, we were drawn to the sport because, for those of us that remember the old claymation Christmas cartoons, I used to say the sport is like the island of misfit toys. And
That's ironic because I have King Moonracer tattooed on my back, like my version of King Moonracer.
oh God.
I am the king of the land of misfit toys.
Yeah. So, I mean, like that's where that's what the sport was for a lot of us. It's like, instead of,
for me, it was just big, manly, tough guys. Like it was about being tough. It was about how hard can I push myself? Can I do this weight? Can I get under this weight that could crush me? And it's scary, but I love it.
But I think there was also something that is, if you do a root cause analysis, there's something that is in there that made that appealing to you. For me, it was getting picked on as much as I did when I was a kid, where it was just like, I was tired of being bullied. I was tired of getting pushed around. It's like, all right, well, simple. Become
without a doubt. Like, you're going to stop teasing me and calling me the fat kid if I'm big enough to punch you in the face and I knock you in your ass.
Yeah.
And then I didn't decide this till just recently. I used to say, well, I got into powerlifting to help with sports. I started lifting to help with sports, but I quickly realized that, hey, listen, this is a good way to control my anger issues. And like, if I'm angry as shit and I come down here and bench until I flatten myself, all of a sudden I'm feeling pretty good and calm.
Yeah. I mean,
so I think for years, I claim I did it to help with sports, but it was other psychological Band-Aids at that time.
Yeah. And I mean, you take a look at a lot of us who did it to just cope with other, childhood traumas or other, issues. It was a Band-Aid, and we became so dependent on it that maybe that's why we got so heavily invested in it. Or there was something about it that just spoke to our personality where, it became such a singular focus for so many. But a lot of it, that why else would anybody choose to do something like this? Why would you literally do something to kill you 7 times a week?
Because I love it. I still love it. I don't lift heavy like I used to, but I mean, I got as good as I was because I realized that, listen, I'm doing this sport to deal with other things, and I can't be the best in the world if I continue to do that.
Yeah.
So I had to kind of deal with my other issues. And then I think every powerlifter, I think the reason that there's such big, strong, monstrous men that are actually cool as shit, I think that at some point they go, listen, I'm big and I'm strong and I can stomp anybody in this room. But you know what? I still feel like I felt. And it didn't really fix anything.
Yeah.
And I think that realization makes them like a pretty cool person.
Yeah.
Pretty cool human being.
And that's one thing that I've always noticed is the longer somebody's in the sport and the higher a level they reach, whatever issues they're kind of dealing with, kind of soften. And a lot of times that's when you see these, because I always reach that conclusion where the people climbing Man Mountain is, like they haven't planted their flag yet. They're still trying to find themselves. They're still trying to prove something. They're also, they're more aggressive, they're more off-putting, they're more insecure about their place, but the better they get, they're like more chill about it.
Yeah.
And they care more about others because they see the people that are climbing that hill behind them. They're like, I know why you're climbing this hill. And I see there's something you're battling behind closed doors, and, you want to help them.
But even for me, even though I've worked through all that stuff and I lift for completely different reasons now, I still love it, man.
Oh yeah.
I mean, I
Oh
just
yeah.
love lifting. I love how it feels. I love how it feels afterwards. I love setting my stupid little goals now. And like, I don't know, something about it for me.
Yeah. I mean, you're proving your mettle, still. It's like
Yeah.
you're earning your place at the table. Like, look, I can still do this. I can still do this. Like, I am not, um, one of those people that did all this stuff and then just faded off into obscurity and never trained again. Because I've seen a lot of things like that happen where people just walk away from the lifestyle completely.
It does happen a lot. It's kind of amazing to me because I can't imagine.
I can't.
I've definitely had some struggles with of course my mental issues and having to take some time off from them, and in dealing with a few injuries now, but like the whole thing of like, okay, you're never going to lift what you lifted.
Yeah.
Like I peaked. I'm mostly because I'm never going to put that much energy back into it.
Hmm.
But we get older. There is a downhill.
Yeah.
And that's a hard thing to kind of deal with. But again, I think that's another lesson that lifting is teaching you about life and stuff. And it's, but I still love lifting, even though that, and I think a lot of people they run away from it at that point. And I'm like, no, it's just another lesson I got to learn. Like, I'm not
Yeah.
leaving this sport. I'm not going to stop lifting. I'm going to lift till I'm dead. And if at some point I can't lift, I imagine I'll probably die shortly after that.
Yeah. I mean, we are the lifers, and well, first off, the lyrics to that song, Rage into the or no, it's a poem, Rage into the Dying of the Light,
Yeah.
kind of come to mind with that. But we are the lifers, and I think there's a different mindset also for us. I think it's easier to walk away from the sport completely when you weren't in it for the same reasons. Like, the lifters of today, I don't know how hard they're going to cling to the sport. How many of them are going to be in the sport for decades?
Mm-hmm.
And you also wonder, like, if social media wasn't a thing and there was not some sort of social currency in their participation,
Would they even
like,
be doing it?
sure is their participation? You take away all
that's
the
an interesting thought too.
Yeah. Or you take away all the followers, you take away all the likes, you take away the monetization of their Instagrams and their Twitters and whatever other social media platform they have. And
Yeah, because we
then
did
what?
not do it for those reasons.
No,
Like, who knew who you were? The people that trained at the gym you're at and other power lifters.
Other power
Like,
lifters.
nobody ever came up to me at the grocery store and went, "Hey, you're Chad Ikes. You're a world record holder."
Yeah.
Like you know what? The few autographs I've ever signed, they were at the Arnold Classic at the competition. Like,
yeah,
nobody was stopping me outside of that.
exactly. You take a look at some of these people, and like our generation, the only positive feedback that you got was, or acknowledgement, I should say, is that one line, Powerlifting USA, with your last name and 4 numbers behind it, what you squatted, what you bench, what you did, what your total was. And that was the only acknowledgement that you even participated in the sport. For the majority of lifters, unless you were lifting in a high enough level meet that one of the ones that got articles written about them, like the APF seniors or USPF nationals, or ADFPA, now USAPL nationals, like the national level meets or the IPF worlds or the WPOs, where they actually had like the 2-page, 3-page write-up.
Yeah.
And you did something worth being mentioned in that article, like Herb Glossbrenner used to write. And it's like, either you did something really impressive, or Herb was going to completely lambaste you for getting a high squat past, or what he felt was a high squat. And he was going to write about it because he was disgusted. But that was for years and years. You get your name in 2 or 3 Powerlifting USAs a year, depending on how many meets you did per year. And that was the only public acknowledgement that you even participated in the sport. Nowadays, you see powerlifters with tens of thousands of social media followers.
Some of them more than that. Some of them hundreds of thousands.
Geez. I must not follow any of them or pay close enough attention to know. But
well, the funny part is they're not. I mean, I scroll through social media every now and then, but I'm usually scrolling through. I'm looking for like things that are going to make my life positive. Yeah. But every now and then I scroll through and I just look at stuff and I'm like, who the fuck is this person? This person, what the hell are they talking about? And then they look good and you see they have a shit ton of followers. Yeah. And you're like, what the hell, man? And then I scroll through and I see people that I actually know that I know are very intelligent. And you're like 7,000, 5,000, 4,000. Yeah. And I'm like, this is all jacked up ass backwards, man.
Oh yeah. I mean, you take a look at the people that should have 100,000 followers and you're like, yeah, they have like 10, if that, you know, and the people that have 100,000 followers, you're like,
but if you step back and think about it, you're like, well, this makes sense. Cause these are all these people following them are the people that see an exercise and just mimic it instead of understanding, wait a minute, what's the point of this exercise? Like even now, I try to give everyone credit. Like I feel like everything that I've learned is just something from somebody else. Oh, maybe I expanded it and took it further, but it all started somewhere else. So I'm always trying to give people credit. But like I'll see an exercise that like DeFranco does, and I'm like, holy shit, I haven't thought of that, dude. That's a great rhomboid exercise. Like I know what it's for, and I can watch him execute it, and I'm picking up every little cue. But there's people that just look at it and go, oh, that looks fun.
Yeah.
Or like, what the fuck kind of thinking is that? Like that makes no sense.
Or the people that come up with an exercise and give it a name. And I'm like, I remember people doing this like 25, 30 years ago in commercial gyms, and we didn't call it that. And you've only been in the sport for like 5 years, 10 years. I'm like, I don't know about this, you know?
Yeah, but don't you see that in so many things? Like when this whole cold bath thing started, I'm like, do you guys understand that this is like ancient shit right here? Oh, yeah. Like this is not even close. This has already cycled through 4 times, and you're acting like it's something new.
Like one of my old buddies, Donnie Thompson, likes to say, "What is old is new again."
Yes, you know? And it's so true.
I mean, and it's so funny too because I have a lot of these same conversations with Donnie. You know, about the state of the sport and whatnot and training and the evolution of everything. But, you know, you take a look at something, it's like, okay, well, it falls out of favor for a while to the point where the masses forget about it. All you need to do is rebrand it, drudge it up, and people are going to think, oh my God, look what you just created. I'm like, I remember that from, you know,
it's funny to me because I mean, and I say this all the time. I go, listen, this isn't rocket science. Yeah. Like there's a lot of things that are a lot more complicated than this. And I go, if one training program worked, there would be one training program. Yeah. If one diet worked, there would be one diet. Yeah. The fact is, people are different. It's not about finding what's perfect. It's about finding what's perfect for you.
Yeah.
And if you are the person that wants to follow and mimic, you're never going to find that. You have to use your head. You have to invest yourself.
Yeah. And then you see a lot of people nowadays where, you know, all the forgotten knowledge comes flooding back in, and they're like using these little like I'm seeing a lot of technical cues in a lot of lifts. And I'm like, you know, not for nothing, we kind of abandoned that idea because that's the way people used to do it 30 years ago. And like everybody was like, nah, maybe we shouldn't do that. Or
yeah, so you're bringing back the leftover shit that we didn't like back then.
Yeah, I was like, you know, I've watched some people squat nowadays, and I'm like, you know, not for nothing, but they kind of abandoned some of these techniques like 20, 30 years ago because of certain types of injuries, but you haven't reached that point yet. So when you do, like, okay, let me know how it goes for you.
But that's the importance of the history of the sport.
Oh, I know. So that you can make an informed decision, and you can have informed consent with what you do, because maybe you've never seen it before, but somebody else has.
Yeah.
And they may be able to tell you, okay, well, this is the benefit of it, but this is the drawback.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe you want to think about that going forward and kind of, make up your mind about whether or not you want to pursue that particular technical style for that movement. Because I mean, like, yeah, you have this, but this lifter, yeah, he did really well with it. But you take a look at like your body versus his, and like they're built to do it that way. Are you trying to cram like a square peg in a round hole here?
But again, that's people not understanding, not taking that they just want to mimic. And this is the same thing with cueing. I was at a strongman competition one time, like a mid-level one, but John Anderson was there, who's a friend of mine. And I kept hearing everybody yelling these cues. And I'm like, okay, like I'm a really good power lifter by this time already. And I've trained with some pro strongman. And I'm like, I don't think these people know what they're talking about. I go, but John's here. I'm going to go ask John. And so I go over and I'm like, John, dude, I got a question for you. I keep hearing all these cues and it's kind of driving me nuts because they don't make any sense.
Yeah.
And he's like, oh, you're talking about this one and this one? He goes, yeah, these people have no idea what they're talking about.
Yep.
And I go, okay, good. I wanted the expert opinion to make sure I'm right here. And it's the same thing. Like you go to meets and you see people yelling shit like back, back, back. And I'm like, why are you, that person's already sitting back. They're just not keeping their knees out.
Yeah.
Why don't you yell at them to root their feet or squeeze their glutes or like, why you don't even know what you're yelling. You're just yelling what you heard other people yell.
Yeah. Or, worse yet, they're yelling what they've heard other people yell, but they don't know when it should be yelled. And to have that level of awareness, like, oh, wait, no, or the eye to see like, hey, that's not the problem. Like their hips are already going back. Like, especially if, you have a lifter that's like got mutant hip mobility and short femurs, it's like their hips are only going to go so far back. So what do you do then? It's like, oh, well, they're locked up. What are you going to scream then? Like,
but it goes back to that same not actually understanding what's going on. Like, I don't want to put any thought into this. I just want to yell so I feel like I fit in.
Yeah.
But I'm not really going to put effort into any of it.
Yeah, it's like going to a raw meet and all you hear everybody scream is up. Like, no shit. Whenever I'm at a raw meet,
I feel a little bad, just a little bit, because I do that. But I'm like, dude, if I could just at this point just get it up. I'm gonna try to motivate you to just keep fucking pushing.
Just muscle fuck it to completion. Get a rack command. Like, there's nothing we can do to help you fix this. But
I'm gonna go to a meet now and go down. And then when people look at me, I'm going to go, Uncle Nick.
Well,
Uncle Nick told me
I will go, and sometimes I'll be like left, right, I'll forward, like I'll just blurt out a random word. It's like, okay, it's about as effective as telling them up, because if they are,
I thought we were just yelling directions. Sorry.
Yeah, like I just thought we were just yelling like arrows. Like these are other directions. I mean.
You turn.
When they're that fucking out of position and they're grinding that hard, they can't hear you anyway. Like you've been under where you're grinding. Can you hear anything?
No, I say that all the time. I don't even listen to commands anymore. Like I stopped listening to commands a long time ago. I'm like, I'll press when I'm ready to press. I train under the right circumstances that I really don't need you to say anything, and I can't hear you anyway.
Oh, you went there, didn't you? Yeah, I train the way I need to train, so I don't have to listen to commands or cues. Okay, great. Yeah, and if people were honest enough about that and trained accordingly, like
if you watch some of my meets, you'll see guys going. Like the judges are like, rack it. And I'm like, I'll fucking rack it when I'm ready to rack it. I don't just stand up and throw it into hooks. All right, buddy?
Yeah. Like, aren't I supposed to hold it to show, like, demonstrate control? Like
squat. And I'm like, I'll squat when I'm ready. I'm not in position yet.
Yeah. Like, as long as you don't move your feet, you're good. But, I haven't gotten enough air or whatever, but that brings up another really interesting point from a historical perspective, is just how much the rules of performance have changed Because when you said you'll press when you're ready to press, it reminded me of that time period where they did away with the press command. You remember that shit?
Mm-hmm.
Back in the 90s where you paused at your own discretion. Do you remember how well that went over?
Yeah, that was always an interesting one. And like, if you read the different rule books, or like some of them, like you have to stop.
Yeah.
I go, well, technically,
like that's a pause.
I can't come from down and start back up without a stop.
Yeah.
So whether you can see it or not, there is a stop. So technically, according to your rule, I can go as fast as I fucking want.
Yeah, I mean, I remember there was a physics professor from one of the universities in the area that used to train with a group that I trained with for a while, and he's like, and now I can't even remember what is it, Newton's second law of motion, where any object that changes direction at one moment in time, the net velocity in all vectors is zero.
Zero. Yep.
So it's like, even if you bounce the crap out of it at one moment in time, it may not be a very long moment.
Even a Super Bowl, at one point, it's stopped on that concrete.
Yep. So, but I remember that where it was like, you just got to start in a rack command, you press at your own discretion. I also remember when I got into the sport, you may also remember that. Wait, you said you did your first meet in 97?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, this may have been phasing out, but do you remember getting red lighted for planing in the deadlift?
No, I don't even know what that means.
Originally, the bar had to maintain one motion upward. The bar could not stall.
Oh, really?
Yeah. They started phasing that out at about the time that I got into it. Some federations still have that. But yeah, the bar had to keep moving. It could not stall and then start back up again. The minute you stalled, that was red lights.
God, with gear, that happened a lot.
Oh God, yeah. Can you imagine all of the, or, just with, the catching the whip in a deadlift bar and it it freezes you for a second and then you continue upward. Can you imagine the number of red lights that would be thrown now if that rule was still in effect? And can you imagine, like, you think about, because I had to explain this to somebody once, because we found an old video on YouTube of a meet from the early 80s where Kazmaier competed, and they watched him pull something in like the mid eights. And they're like, Jesus Christ, like his third attempt looks like a last warm up. And I was like, yeah, because back then the rules were different. You couldn't stall in the deadlift. It all had to be one motion. Bar couldn't like stall, bar couldn't slow. Like even if the bar slowed down, it's like you're opening yourself up for red lights. So it's like, the deadlifts were very different back then. And they looked at me like I had three heads, and I'm like, yeah, well, the rule book has changed in certain things over the years.
And through different feds. I mean, like the bench press, like getting an actual press command or having to lock it out, and guys doing soft handoffs and like those. It's changed. There's been a lot of changes through the sport over the years.
Oh yeah. And I mean, not only just with what's written in the rule book, but also how it's applied and how it's enforced. Which is also one of my hot button topics.
That's a tough one for me, because I'm gonna flat out say I think the judging on squat depth has fluctuated so bad, and I'm part of that, because near the end of like the WPO era, like when was my last WPO? It was 07, I think, or 07 or 08. I heard meet directors and I heard the WPO tell the judges to lighten up on depth. Yeah. As a lifter who wants to win, what do you think I'm going to do?
You're going to go where the judging is.
I'm going to go, okay, that means I'm going to, that's why one of the reasons I would go to meets and I would watch the judging the first day to get an idea. Are they super strict, or are they going to lighten up a little bit? Because I just want it on a level playing field. If it's going to lighten up and it lightens up for everybody, fine. But
And
if you're doing records and everything, I don't think that's a good thing. And you should never hear a meet director go, "Hey, you guys judges need to ease up." No, the judge's job is to judge, let them judge. And if every motherfucker gets bombed out of that meet, I'll bet the next meet guys hit their depth.
Exactly. And that's why, I come off hard on the judging a lot of times, or I come off difficult on the execution. And a lot of people think I'm trashing the lifters. I'm really just, I don't like the judging because it has, devolved. And at the same time, the lifters aren't even holding themselves accountable to be able to do that. Because they've gotten so used to, okay, well, this is good enough. This is good enough. It's like, okay, what happens to you when you go to a meet that actually has judges that are calling it by the rule book? What do you do then?
I think that's a slippery slope. That whole, I'm just going to go a little easy. I'm just going to go. It's a very slippery slope. That's a
slippery slope too. Yeah. You have some people that get themselves also into a tricky situation where it's like, okay, did you really hit that massive 100-pound PR, or did you get a gift? And now
I think one of the problems with this is, and first of all, let me say this. I never argued with the judge. If I got red lighted, I kind of knew in my head I was pushing the border. And if I wanted to, I could have sunk it unquestionably.
Yeah.
So that was my choice. So I'm not going to get mad at a judge who's doing his job. When I went that 12:21, which I still say was deeper than Mike Miller's, who had the record. But the judges, and I talked to the judges, they both came up and talked to me, and they're like, "Chad, man, that was super, super close. Yeah. But I just couldn't give it to you." And I went, "Cool. I told you that you're the judge, man. I respect your decision."
Yeah.
Sure, it would have been nice to get it. And I didn't know that I was going to go off the edge. I thought I had another chance. I didn't know I was going to go off the fucking mental health edge. But that's their job. That's what they do. I'm not watching it. I can't say, and then you watch a video, dude, I have squats from multiple angles.
Yeah.
Dude, they all look different.
Oh yeah.
Trying to judge a squat from a video, unless you know exactly where the video was shot from, is very difficult.
Oh yeah. Because even though it may still be from like the same angle, the height of the camera will matter.
Yeah. Yeah.
But simultaneously,
there's also certain things you can look at and you go, I don't care what the angle is. There's no way that was
that was anywhere close. Yeah. And, especially when you've seen it enough, or when you've seen what it looks like when an equipped lifter really is there. Yeah. You're like, okay, all right. Yeah, that's definitely there.
And I mean, even the same thing, I had a couple benches where I went, "Ooh, God, I got lucky on that one." Yeah. And then I see it from another angle and I go, "Oh, well, that wasn't half bad at all."
Yeah, no. And that's really what the judge's job is. I mean, they're supposed to make the best call they can at the time, and not supposed to question it, like not think too much about it. And this is what I would, because I've done practical exams for dozens of judges over the years, because I've been judging meets since 98. Yeah, 98. And I used to love when I was judging USPA meets, because they also made you track, like you kept a logbook of how many meets you judged and how many flights you sat in the chair and stuff like that for when you were doing the advancement tests to go from, state to national to international level judge. Thanks to that logbook, I can tell you, I would say over, what is that now? 25 and a half years of judging. I've probably judged 200 or so meets.
That's incredible.
Yeah, because there was a good time. There was a few year stretch where I was doing 20 to 30 meets a year. And
I think to some extent that's a skill set too.
Oh yeah.
I have judged nowhere near. I probably judged like 10 or 15 meets, maybe nowhere near 200. And it's a skill to make sure you're in the right position and to see, and you got to, especially in a squat, you got to kind of judge when that person walks up, you need to kind of be looking at, is this guy got a big thigh? Does he have no thigh? Does he have a big ass? Where's his knee at? And before he even goes, you're already looking at.
Well, not to mention, like, where's the hip at the top of the thigh? Because you keep hearing a lot about this mythical hip crease. That is not anywhere in the rule book for most federations. There are 2 federations that have changed the verbal definition of the squat. But, you know, like APF, IPA, USAPL, USPA, like the verbal definition of the squat is the same, and they use the same diagram. So it's hip at the top of the thigh. There is no hip crease mentioned in the rule book. And then you have like the other issue of like top of the knee. It's not top of the knee wrap. It's not the highest point of the thigh where the knee wrap comes up. So you've got all these people that are looking at objective points on a body, but they're applying the definition subjectively. And I don't understand how they're even coming up like the highest point of the knee wrap on the thigh. How is that the top of the knee? The top of the knee is the top of the knee.
It's the thigh. It's not even the knee anymore.
Yeah, I know. So, and then you're talking about the hip at the top of the thigh, you know, and I mean, like when you're raw, you know, the hip at the top of the thigh and the hip crease, if you're judging it on a singlet, is kind of the same area. But then when you start adding equipment in, it changes because you've got tight material compressing that point down. And so, yeah, I call it the muffin quad effect, where instead of like a muffin top on a tight pair of pants, it's mushing your quad out of the bottom of the leg of the suit. Okay, fine. So you've got that quad bubble to judge off of, but it's compressed that hip at the top of the thigh point down a little bit. And then you have people who are looking at the crease of the suit, which the crease of the suit and the crease of the hip are 2 totally different things.
Yeah.
Because you take all of a sudden the term that Dave Nettles used to use for the diaper suit, you take canvas. That crease of the material is going to go almost all the way down to the bottom of the glute. So you've taken that point. Now you've extended it like 3 inches below the actual landmark that's mentioned in the rule book.
Right.
So there's so much subjectivity on how each judge,
that's easier to see on a thin person than a big person.
Oh yeah. I mean, and that's why a lot of like,
and what really irritates me is the people that don't know how to judge at all, and they take the knee angle into consideration.
Yeah.
And I'm like, the knee angle doesn't matter at all. You could sit way far forward and have a huge knee angle, but barely be breaking parallel.
Yeah, with enough forward tibial tracking, like your knee can go so far forward that you're never going to hit depth. You're going to.
I come from the physical therapy background, and I'm like, dude, why can't we just like the greater trochanter to the midline of the knee?
Because the IPA tried that greater trochanter change in the rule book back in the 90s and got lambasted for it.
Why? Because people didn't understand where it was or something?
Exactly. Because they're like, oh, they're changing the rule to accommodate to lessen the depth that you have to go to. It's like, no, it's the same landmarks.
Yeah, it's basically, it literally basically is the same landmarks.
Yeah. It's just changing the wording, but people at the time were a little bit too close-minded to think about, well, the application is actually the same, but also how are you going to know where the greater trochanter is, especially under a suit? It's like, okay, well, you're kind of going to have to like watch the movement pattern and see where try to estimate where the skeleton is. But I mean, simultaneously, like I've been to rules briefings where I've been sitting in the chair and I'm listening to the head official give a definition of squat depth. Is like, that's not even in the rule book. Like,
see, that's pretty bad.
Yeah, it is. And I'm sitting here like, oh God. And then, you see how it's implemented and you're just like, wow, I'm like, you just shrug your shoulders because like what do you do? Yeah, the athlete is going to go where the judges are calling it, but at the same time, there's a lot of judges out there that don't even have enough experience as lifters to be sitting in the chair. And a lot of them don't have experience in equipment or much experience in equipment to be like, oh, well, this is what I'm looking at. Especially when you're an equipped lifter in some of the raw feds or the predominantly raw feds. So you've got a bunch of people that are either way too strict because they don't understand, like, the muffin quad effect, where it's pinched down. So yeah, it's artificially lowered that hip at the top of the thigh by compressing, especially in larger lifters. But simultaneously, like when it comes to press commands and shirts, like I've almost been blacked out with the bar on my chest because some of these, raw lifters that were sitting in the judge's chair, I'm like, you've got a heavy weight on a standard bar's oscillating. Like that bar's never going to stop oscillating because it's a flimsy 45-pound bar.
Yeah. And
they're like trying to get you to like the bar to completely stop moving on your chest. And you're in like a shirt and it's like, 1,000, 1,000. Like I've just gone because I'm like, I must miss the press command. Then you get red lights. It's like, what for? Like you didn't wait for the press command. I was like, are you serious? I thought I missed it.
I think part of that is I wonder if that's not because like the rules theoretically should be the same. If you're in gear or not in gear, it's the same fucking rule.
Exactly. It is.
But things might look a little different. Things might be a little different. And I wonder if there isn't people that are like, well, he's got a shirt on. He should hold it longer. Why? Why should he hold it longer? It's just like people who go, well, I'm in a suit. I shouldn't have to go as deep. No, yeah, you should have to go exactly where you're supposed to go.
Yeah, exactly.
It should be the fucking same thing.
Yeah. And I mean, like in equipment, it's, it used to be hit or miss. And I mean, like back when the spotter blockout rule was a little more common, it's like, yeah, some stuff slid because you couldn't quite get in the right position because there's 7 spotters on the platform. You couldn't get an angle to see. But nowadays,
I think doesn't that kind of go back to like, listen, we're going to lean towards the lifter.
Yeah.
So if I can't get a good look and I don't completely know, I kind of have to give it to the lifter.
Yeah. And that should always be the case. But sometimes I think that the judges, now that we have, a little bit better spotting and loading, especially in equipped, you've got safety straps on the monos.
Yeah.
Because, back in the day, we didn't have those.
I look back at that and I'm like, that seems like a pretty simple solution we probably should have fucking thought of.
We should have thought about that so many years before, because I look back and sometimes you'll see some of the old pictures from meets and, a lot of the
dude, I've been down with I went down with 1,052 and 1173 or something like that. I've been to the floor with.
Mm-hmm.
And every time I'm just more like, dude, is everybody okay? Like, I don't want nobody getting hurt because I fucked up and missed a lift, man.
Oh, yeah.
I never let go. I ride that motherfucker to the ground.
Oh, yeah. And I mean, like, if everybody should be doing their part to get it back in the rack, but you also need good enough spotters.
And you have to catch it soon enough. There's a point where I don't care how many hands that nobody can get enough of a handle on it to do anything.
Yeah, because it's falling too fast.
Yeah.
But I mean, there's a lot of things that just make you go,
The scary part now is with like Jimmy. Like, dude, that's so much fucking weight. Like, it's just scary. I mean, when you're starting to bend a bench, like it's on the hairy side.
So you heard about that?
Yeah.
Oh my God, that dude. I mean, as the
still say something happens, say he tears a tricep or breaks a bone.
Oh yeah,
those guys have to lift 1,400 pounds off there, 1,500 pounds off of him.
Forbid that happens, yeah.
And there's really not that many places to hold on to it.
well, not to mention the face savers, hopefully, but I mean, if the bench is already bending,
Yeah.
that was a crazy day because I was the center handoff guy, and I'm handing it out to him, and on that, first attempt, I'm like sitting here and I feel like I'm standing on a Bosu ball.
Yeah.
Like something's wrong. Like either I'm so nervous, I'm shaking so bad, and I don't think that's the case, but it could be. And I'm like, I'm like, I can't, like, I just feel like I'm moving. And yeah, I mean, as great as the F8 bench bar is, it's like, it can't be whipping that much. We've had close to this kind of weight on it before in the gym when I've gone to train with Jimmy or in past meets, and I'm like sitting here, I'm like, something's up. So, and then it wasn't until after we got off the platform, we look over and the uprights are kind of like,
yeah.
Pitched in.
And that's weird too, because I don't know. I think I don't remember if I talked to Jimmy about this because I've had him on a couple of times. But I had Blaine Sumner on, and we were talking about you start squatting 1,200 pounds. Like they're literally like, he's like, yeah, I would set the bar. I would set the height like under my nipples.
Oh, yeah.
Because the bar's going to bend that much.
Yeah.
So now you think about the dude on the bench.
Yep.
So he's under there and you're handing off. So he's got to start with such an angle that it's hard to help. And then you're picking it up. As you're picking it up, the bar's bending. And then when it goes into his hand, it's also going to flex again. Yep. And now all of a sudden the freaking bench is bending on you too.
That was a crazy, crazy experience, I gotta say. But luckily there was another bench there that didn't sway and move, and it and the frame didn't even really, it didn't bend much, but it was enough where you looked at it like, and I mean, maybe after moving it, it kind of, taking all the weight off of it, maybe it came back to true. I'm not sure, but all I know is the whole thing was like rocking and moving, and I'm like, I can't even imagine what it felt like, just the weight alone, but also being like Jimmy with that weight and just not being able to get stable,
Yeah. So yeah, that's like 1,700 plus pounds on that bench.
Yeah. I mean,
and you're kind of standing on it. You're in the thing too. Yeah. So there's another 300
so
pounds,
almost 2,000 pounds on this bench. And we're just like, oh, wow. But I mean, also at the same time, like you take a look at some of the other times, like the Iron Wolf bench bar that Jimmy did, the 13, what was it, 1320?
Mm-hmm.
And on with the 100-pound plate, so that pushed all the weight out further to the end, and it's like, God, it was like, it looked like you were benching with a deadlift bar, Jimmy. So that also, as it bows, it's like you have to go that much further down to get a touch point, because you're kind of like benching with an impromptu buffalo bar. So
I think that brings up another topic though, and it's more I think looking back at the old days, but like people like, oh, well, he's strong in the gear. It's like, no, Jimmy's strong as shit. Yeah. Like, Jimmy is just fucking strong. I don't care what he's doing. No. He's just fucking strong. Yeah. And I think when you look back, a lot, like I hear this every now and then well, they were in gear. Like, yeah, but don't understand. Most of those guys didn't wear gear all the time. I hardly ever wore my gear.
Yeah, because remember, that was the old thing. Like, you should be able to train conjugate and then just put your gear on at the meet. Remember?
Yeah.
Remember that mentality? That's what
I mean, literally, I would put my gear on. I would hit my opener 6 weeks out. I still wouldn't wear knee wraps. That's when I put my full gear back on, was 6 weeks before the meet.
Yeah. I mean,
and then like I would train, my dynamic work I do in my squat briefs. Every now and then we would throw the shirt on and do like a two board or something. But most of my training was more raw than in gear.
Yeah.
And I know a lot of guys, I would just like randomly we're like, hey, let's push the raw bench today.
Yeah.
I mean, like, hey, when's the last time I did that? I don't know, 10 months ago, 12 months ago, and hit like a 600-pound raw bench.
Yeah.
You know, or do 500 for a set of 10 or something.
That was something that you used to see a lot of too, was because, you know, you take a look at some of the guys in the warm-up room, like their last raw warm-ups. Like I always remember, what was it? I think it was like, I watched Frankel, like he took like 545 raw on the bench.
He was a tank
when he was still 198. And it was like the raw world record was only like 20 pounds heavier. And he smoked it, and it's just like, wow, you know. And
we were messing with Ryan Kennelly at like one of the Wabdell meets, my partners.
Oh God.
And he did, I don't know what he did. He did like 5 something. We're like, oh yeah, really fast with that one. And so he loads it up to like 6 and just goes, boom, and looks over at us. And we're like, all right, yeah, okay, I got it. I got your point. Yeah, that was fast.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, what he did, like, there's a video of him doing like 7 plates raw in the warm-up room at some meet. You know,
he was just, I mean, all those guys, like everybody I know back from that era was just stupid strong.
Yeah. I mean, like when, like you take a look at some of their best numbers in equipment, and it's like, okay, well, you just take the gear off of them, because the gear was not adding as much as it is today. And the training was different. It's like, we just wanted to be strong. We just wanted to be jacked. We valued that over everything.
I think there was, I know for me, because I felt like I always took a somewhat scientific approach to this, but I'm also blue collar.
Yeah.
So yeah, okay, I need to have an idea how my gear works. I need to fix my weak points. I want my technique. Technique is the one way I can show my true strength. If my technique's bad, I can't do that. You know, so there's all these different factors, but in the end, when you took the blue collar approach, okay, all that stuff's fixed. You know what? I still got to get stronger. Like I still have to get stronger. That's the basis. That's the foundation of all this shit. And granted, there were a few guys that were like really proficient in gear and really bad raw.
Yeah.
But for the vast majority of the guys, you're like, no, and I wish I had more training video. Like I had one I posted in like an old, like it was just an old, one of the first boss suits, I think. And I hit like a 900 squat. And I wasn't even getting pumped up. That was just like, hey, here's what I'm hitting today. Like big deal.
Yeah. And that kind of ties on to something else that everybody who trains conjugate, nobody really talks about anymore, is the concept of dynamic correspondence. Like nobody knows how much they're getting out of their gear anymore.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, I knew like, hey, if my raw bench is this, then I can do this in a shirt, because I know exactly how to manipulate the shirt and do, you know, like there's certain testers that I have. It's like, I know whatever I can do on this exercise, like I can do that on the platform in a shirt, or I know exactly how much I'm getting out of this level of, you know, equipment, where like I know what my best raw is, you know, based off of, or like if I can squat this much full gear, and then I know I can squat this much in wraps and briefs, I can take a raw squat at this and probably be able to hit it, and I would prove myself right like 100% of the time.
Yeah.
Because
you kind of had, I didn't test my raw that much. I just didn't care. But I always had these other lifts that I knew if I did this, I'm going to do this much in gear. And this means that my raw went up too, because nothing ever went up on its own. Like even if my gear lift went up, my raw lift went up when I tested it the next time.
Yeah.
Like, so it was like, I fixed everything. Now I'm just getting stronger.
Yeah.
And if that base strength gets stronger, it's all going to get stronger.
Else comes with it. Yeah. Or even if you don't hit as much raw, you know, as much of an increase, like, okay, we'll say your tester number, like like one of the guys I trained with, he said, like, I need to know how 600 is going to feel raw before, like, I know what, like, that's my hallmark number. It's like, if 600 moves like air, I know I got stronger. I know I'm good. But if 600 does not like fly raw, like I know I need to fix something.
Right.
You know, so everybody kind of has that one warm-up set where okay, well, this weight should feel this light.
Yeah.
And if you know that like that's your number, and you don't want to say like, you know, you don't want to risk like taking a huge raw attempt if you're an equipped lifter. It's like, okay, well, this weight, I need to know how fast I can move it, how easy it feels.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so even though you may not take like a full-blown raw max, like say you never go over, you know, 6 plates raw before you're starting to put briefs on or whatever. It's like, okay, well, I also know that this weight is now moving way easier. So you know you've done something to make it work. You know,
and we always had like every now and then we would have, because I love people that say you can't go wide raw. Because my one training partner Scott, every now and then we'd be like, hey, let's just box squat today, but let's go completely raw.
Yeah.
And I mean, we hardly ever did this. This was on a whim.
Yeah.
And so his feet, he was like Vogelpohl. He's touching the monolift with his feet. And he went like 8 something raw, pretty easy.
Yeah.
And I'm like, people keep saying you can't do this, but if your hips are strong enough, I don't understand why people keep saying this.
If your hips are strong enough and you're flexible enough, yeah, you can do it. You know, if you can pull raw sumo, why can't you squat wide raw?
I say that all the time.
But
I'm like, the bar's here or the bar's here. Really, it's still pretty similar.
Movement pattern. It's just, is everything else strong enough to support it?
Mm-hmm.
And are you guarding and fucking yourself up technically? That's the bigger issue.
Yes.
I've seen a lot of people, you know, like raw because they don't feel any support, you know, they start guarding in weird ways and it throws them off technically, where if they just kind of embrace the suck and just gone in with it, it wouldn't have been so bad.
And that goes back to that rounds back around to the whole learn and be vested.
Mm-hmm.
Because I can be the best coach in the world, but if you're guarding stuff, it's probably going to take me a little while to figure that out, because I might not see it right off the bat.
Yeah.
Where if you know your body and you know what you're doing and you know your technique, you can be honest with yourself and go, you know what, I'm fucking tentative. I'm not doing what I need to do.
Yep. You know, and it happens a lot when people start getting a little bit banged up and whatnot, mm-hmm. and certain things aren't moving the way they should. And then people start guarding, and then they inevitably cause more trauma in those joints, and then it just keeps getting worse. So you see a lot of people fuck themselves out of the game by getting a little bit banged up and then not trusting themselves, mm-hmm. and finding their technique. So, I mean, I've seen people do some pretty dumb stuff in that regard too, but
this is a whole nother route now of, I have a lot of issues with this whole being tough and training beat up.
Oh yeah.
Because even one of my problems, and one of the reasons I never finished physical therapy or never went to PT school, is I got so tired of working with people, and I would see them, they come in and they're hurting. It's like we would get them to not hurt. Then we go, okay, you're good. See ya. And I'm like, but they developed a horrible movement pattern. We're not fixing the movement pattern. So as soon as they go back to work, eventually it's all going to be screwed up again.
Yep.
And I see a lot of lifters who will do that. They get hurt and they're sore, and so they got to roll for 4 hours before they can fucking squat.
Yeah.
And then they still squat with a bad movement pattern.
Yep.
And so like all you're doing is you're going to get screwed up. It may take you a year or two down the road, and then all of a sudden you're fucked up and you don't know why. And it's like, well, because the last 2 years you've been doing it wrong. Because instead of letting yourself heal up, or going, hey, listen, me squatting right now is, I'm just going to develop horrible movement patterns. So I need to get healed up. Can I find other exercises to maintain my strength while that happens? Like, nobody wants to ever take that step back to take a couple steps forward.
No. Everybody's just pushing forward. It's like sometimes less is more, especially in aging athletes. A lot of times less is more, especially as you've accrued a lot of dings and damage, and you know, you've got some joints that are deteriorating. It's like, if you want to stay in this, you're going to have to train very differently. And I mean, mm-hmm. I always tell people, you know, the way you can train when you're in your teens is going to be different than your 20s, 30s, 40s on up. And the way you train to get to certain threshold numbers is always going to be different Because I mean, the training that got you to a 300-pound bench is going to be very different than the training that's going to get you to 400, to 500, 600, 700. Because if you try to train and use the same methods that got you from like 4 to 500, and you try to use those same methods, once you get over 7, you're going to die. Because you're going to beat yourself into the ground so badly, you're just done.
And as you get older, that's going to change. And that's one of my arguments for learning, not just doing, but learning how to train. Yeah. Say you get really good. Say you break a world record. Now you're in territory nobody's ever been in. There is no one that can help you now.
No.
You have to learn something completely different because nobody's ever been here.
Yeah. I mean, you've gone off the reservation with that. And it's like a lot of people aren't willing to kind of try anything new. It's like the hell I know is better than the hell I don't know. And it's like, well, the hell you know is not going to have the impact that you think it's going to have.
Yeah.
You're the trailblazer at this point, and you've got to walk into the unknown and kind of think on your feet a little bit, because I mean, shit, you take a look at, use Jimmy as an example. He's so far in uncharted territory. It's like, well, what do you do now?
Yeah. Now you got to really learn to listen to your body, and you got to really learn that, hey, here's what I've learned. Where can I take it now? Because he is in complete, nobody's even close.
Yeah. No, I mean, and then you've got other people that just don't listen to themselves enough as they go, and they end up just grinding themselves into the ground, because like, well, this is what I did 20 years ago. It's like, that's great and all, but you're also 20 years older and you've got a lot more miles on those tires, and your body may not be able to take the same kind of training. It probably or won't. And that's when you start thinking about, I'm going to use another one of those words, minimal effective dose. But
that's very funny, because I think and by the time they watch this one, the one with Marshall will be up. I think in the one with Marshall, I talked about, I think we need to rework the way we look at strength training. We need to stop going, how much time can I spend in the gym? And start thinking, what's the minimum amount to stimulate the growth?
Yep. I mean, and this is kind of funny because, we talk about applying all of this to other facets of life. The training mentality has implications in other facets of life, and you can take the mentality into other arenas. It's like, yeah, well, I've made those correlations with, things in my profession. It's like, yeah, the minimum effective dose is what you need, and anything beyond that is just going to be a waste or have a negative impact. And too many people are just like, kind of like the healthcare system nowadays is like, oh, we're going to treat to an algorithm. We're going to treat to a target dose of this medication. It's like, what if they don't need that much?
Right.
Like, if you do that with blood pressure meds, now you've tanked their blood pressure, and now they've got a whole other set of issues that could kill them now. So let's not do that.
I think to some extent it's like money too.
Oh yeah.
If you could make $100,000 a year working 80 hours a week or working 20 hours a week, what would you rather do?
Yeah.
I'd much rather work 20 hours a week and make it. Now, if I want to can I work more after that and make even more? That would be a different question, but
does it scale? No. Okay, then. So a lot of things come into play, but a lot of people are just stuck in this mentality. And for some people, it's their only social outlet. So they don't mind spending 2-3 hours a day in the gym. But if you have a life outside of this place, and you don't want to just keep grinding yourself into dirt, because your body's only got so many reps in it over the course of a lifetime before a joint gives, or, the bone just gets ground into nothing to the point where you need the joint replaced. Then what do you do with that?
We were talking, I think it was AJ again. We were talking about coaches, and like, do you want the coach that's beat up at 60 years old, or do you want the coach that's been a high level lifter and healthy at 60 years old?
Yeah. you know, a lot of guys will talk about that. It's like, all right, do you want the gnarled up old guy who can't do this anymore? Or do you want the guy that actually can still hang out with, you know, moving some weight and, you know, granted they're not what they used to be, but they're still out there.
Yeah.
You know, and I mean, like you see a lot of guys from past generations that were completely used up by the time they were in their 40s.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and then you see
and honestly, if you look at guys like Donnie, for example, Donnie put up his 3,000 at what, 42, 44, something like that. Like if you stay healthy, your 40s could be your prime.
Actually, I think he was older than that.
Was he?
I think he was older than that. I think he was 47.
Really? Could be. I wish he would do. I asked him to come on and he's like, I don't do podcasts anymore. And I'm like, even for me? Come on.
Yeah, you know. And some people just prefer to stay out of the limelight.
Oh, I don't blame him at all. I was like, dude, I totally understand. That's cool.
Yeah. It was actually kind of funny because like I told him the other day that I was going to be on, and he just again said the same thing. I was like, why don't you do any, you know, a podcast or anything? And he's like, you know, I just stay away from it all. But yeah, no, I'm thinking back. What was that? 2011 or 2012?
Something like that.
That he totaled 3,000, and so that was like 12, 13 years ago. Yeah, no, he may have been like 46.
I'm going to see if it's in this magical open powerlifting.
It'll probably list his age.
3,000. So that was 2011. 46.
Okay. Yeah.
That's even, I didn't realize that's awesome.
Yeah.
He was good though. I mean, he was good with his, you know, a lot of the stuff, the tempering stuff. He was playing around with that. He was doing kettlebells. Like even now, I mean, he just had his knee done, right?
Yeah.
But I mean, he's been pretty healthy through the whole thing.
Yeah.
For maintaining that kind of weight that long.
Yeah. I mean, because that's the thing too. Like I remember when I first met Donnie, what was that, 98 or 99? He was like 220 or 242.
Yeah. Yeah, I seen pictures of when he started powerlifting and it was like he looked like a bodybuilder.
Oh yeah, well, because he was.
Yeah.
With that buzz cut, crew cut, you know, Arnold Schwarzenegger kind of
and
thing.
Then again to go that level, because I mean I was, you know, my body weight's would fluctuate anywhere from 220 to 270. And then to put well over 100 pounds, that's a lot of weight.
Yeah.
To be carrying for that long.
Yeah. And I mean, he maintained a level of strength for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's kind of like what Louis talked about, how he had his pro total for like 30 years. Like, yeah, you know, I mean, longevity is such a huge thing. And you know what? It's kind of a crazy thing too, because you think you're on a pathway towards it, but you're never going to know except in retrospect.
Yeah. Well, I think strength too. Strength is one of those things that, and this is what I try to tell younger people, like, dude, it's going to take time.
Mm-hmm.
The worst thing you can do is try to rush it faster than what it can happen.
Oh yeah.
Like you don't get strong. And I try to tell this with a lot of my guests. I try to go like, when did you start? Where did you start? Where did you end up? Because I don't think people understand. This is like 10, 15 year investment.
Yeah.
Like if you want to put up some big ass numbers.
Oh yeah. It's not going to be an overnight thing. And too many people will try to use a lot of substances to try to speed that up.
And that's the stuff that ends up damaging.
Yep.
Like your tendons need to get bigger. Your ligaments need to get bigger. Your bones need to get denser. Like there's a lot of stuff that has to happen in your body that just can't happen that fast.
Well, and that sparks a very interesting topic that, I don't know, do we need to do a time check? Like how long have we been going here?
We're pushing 3 hours.
Oh, wow. Okay. But I mean, that's another thing too, because I mean, a lot of people, especially in past generations, didn't realize like, yeah, your bone density has to acclimate.
Mm-hmm.
You know, because we learned that lesson hard when we saw a lot of forearms snapping.
Yeah. When
Yeah,
with the shirts and we started benching more. Yeah.
yeah, or you know, when people started noticing like you know, the hip and knee replacements starting to increase, um, you know, in older lifters, because I mean, yeah, you wore the joint out. Like nobody thought about these things beforehand, that your body was eventually going to give out, and you know, that you had to give all of that time to acclimate. I remember reading Ted Arcidi articles in the muscle magazines back in the days, like you have to go slow to give your ligaments a chance to acclimate to the load. And then, you know, like I started thinking, well, yeah, that kind of makes sense. And then I started thinking about bone structure, you know, a while back when I was thinking like, because I remember I told Jimmy, like, man, you should get a DEXA scan. Like, I want to know what your forearms look like
I
your radius.
would, I
Ulna.
would
I
like to
want
know
you
the
to take an
density of his
X-ray. I
bones.
kind of want this,
Yeah.
because a lot of guys over the years have gone in for MRIs and stuff, and they will show me like pictures. They'll send me pictures like, hey, look at this, like the bone deformations that
Mm-hmm.
years under heavy training loads, because like your bones, there will be microfractures and remodeling. And it's like, you know, people's forearms are bowing out, or you know, they're growing in altered ways. They're not straight
Yeah.
anymore because they've broken and remodeled so many times. All the calcifications below the deltoid from people that wore denim shirts slung down low, you know, a lot of
But I think there's a flip side to that too, though. Like when I had my hip MRI'd at like 37 or 38.
mm-hmm.
And the doctor asked if he could keep it. And I go, yeah, but why? And he goes, because you have the hips of a 20-year-old and you squat 1,200 pounds.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
But
it does.
I took the time to grow. I took the time to heal. I took the time to keep flexibility.
Yeah.
You know, and if you don't give your ligaments time, say, take your shoulder joint, for example, if your
Mm-hmm.
ligaments don't get to grow and be strong enough to handle it, then there's going to be all this extra movement in your shoulder joint. Well, what's that going to do to your articular cartilage? It's going to wear that shit out faster.
Yep.
So like, it's like a trickle down kind of thing.
Yeah. Oh, it goes in both directions. Yeah. But I mean, like, if you don't take that time to build the foundation, literally the skeletal foundation, the other thing too, like a lot of people will think, oh, well, I'll just use drugs to speed things up. And it's like, okay, you do realize that only works on the actual muscle cells. It's not doing, you know,
Yeah.
as much tendon. And then all of a sudden the muscle becomes stronger than the tendon and the two separate.
Mm-hmm.
Or the muscle yanks so hard it rips the tendon off the bone. Okay, problem. You know,
Mm-hmm.
a lot of people decided that that was the shortcut they wanted to take, and they talked themselves, but they used that train of logic. They rode that train all the way to the station, and the station was an early exit from the sport.
Mm-hmm.
You know, cut into their own potential because they weren't patient. You know,
And you cut that time short and you find out that by the time you hit your prime, you're destroyed. You can't even enjoy.
Yeah, you're
Like
destroyed, or when
putting
you
up the
are,
best numbers you were capable of.
yeah, when you yeah, you cut your potential short, but also you cut your career short. And then after that, because a lot of that was coming from help, you lost so much of it.
Mm-hmm.
There's that baseline level of strength you thought you were going to keep. No, you know, because I mean, you see guys like I've seen so many guys. It's like they pull some gigantic meat together, and then they come off of everything because of a health issue. And it's like, then they try to get back into training or something after enough time has passed. And it's like, oh man, like, yeah, you know, like, and it wasn't even that long of a hiatus where you're just like, okay.
Yeah, I
But
think that still goes back to that whole base of training and that whole thought process of I'm not just listening people. I'm not just going to listen and mimic people. I'm actually going to learn about this, and I'm actually going to educate myself and then choose who I listen to and who I don't listen to. Do I want to listen to the guy that's going to tell me to get on drugs because he's trying to fucking pump the shit out of you to get even more clients? And he doesn't give a shit if you don't last more than 3 years.
Yeah.
You know, he wants to put a bunch of weight on you, make you really strong, use that to get other clients. And he doesn't really have your best interest in hand.
Yeah. I mean, I've seen a lot of coaches go that route where they've got their show pony, and the show pony gets worked into the ground. The show pony is really a workhorse.
Yep.
And it's like they just get worked into the ground until they find a better, newer show pony. And, you know, but it's a little predatory, but I mean, that goes with any industry. So,
okay, I'm gonna wrap this up here for us. But dude, you as much as all my other people, you're welcome to come on anytime. I would love to have you back on. I mean, even like the end of this conversation, we could probably keep going on this alone. And the conversations that we have anyway, messaging back and forth all the time, like almost any one of those could be an episode.
Oh yeah, seriously, they could. You know, we should definitely do this again. We should also maybe try to get a way where a bunch of us can get together and just have like a little round table.
I've actually thought, I was thinking about that with Vinny, because I'm like, dude, I'd like to have Vinny and Wendler and Matt Rhodes on. And I think it would be cool just to get like, a bunch of different people, and let's pick a topic and everybody just kind of goes around and starts. I think that would be a blast.
Oh, like we did at that buffet in Vegas that night. Like,
yeah,
dude, if you could have had a microphone hanging over that table, that would have been hilarious.
Dude, you get some great ass stories. And I'll still say the most knowledge, all the seminars I've been to, all the hanging around people, the best knowledge I ever got was when I'm hanging around a group of powerlifters and everybody's just telling what they did and how they do it. And you're asking questions, and like there's so much knowledge comes whizzing by you at those times. Oh
yeah. And you kind of wish you had a video recorder to kind of capture it all. So, but yeah. I mean, it's been great. Thank you for having me on.
Cool, Nick. This was awesome. I'm going to hit my little outro here.
Thanks for listening to the Courage Barbell Unlimited podcast. For more information, please visit couragebarbell.com. Until next time.